fellow Falcoholics. What is up? Welcome to another episode of the Falcoholic Live. I am your host, Kevin Knight, at Falcoholic Kevin on Twitter, joined by my co-host, Eric Robinson. He is at _Eric_Robinson, here to bring you a jam-packed show of content. I'm coming to you, I'm sure astute viewers don't recognize the area that I'm currently broadcasting from. So I am broadcasting from my childhood home in Florida. Everything, I think, is working normally, so if you guys notice any problems with the stream, let us know. But also with us, of course, is Eric Robinson. And Eric, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Yeah, the off season's been treating me well so far. So we'll see how that goes over the rest of the year. But we do have a lot to talk about. We have the schedule release. We have a draft recap later in the show. We're going to talk about the undrafted free agent signings as well. We're going to have a very special guest joining us at some point within the next hour or so. NBC Sports Edge's Thor Nystrom, one of the most in-depth scouts, I think, on the entirety of Twitter. I believe he scouted over 500 players in this class. So he is the man when it comes to undrafted free agents. So we're going to get a chance to talk with him a little bit later. But for now, we know everyone wants to know about the Falcons' schedule. So, Eric, let's dive right into the schedule release. Obviously, we're all just kind of getting it now as it comes out. But are there any immediate things that stand out to you about the 2021 schedule for the Falcons?
I've really taken a look at it, and I sent it to you guys in the group chat, but that midweek slate in the middle of the season between week 5 and week 11, not in love with. One of the first things that I look at when I see a schedule is the travel frequency on the schedule. How is it laid out, especially for certain teams? This is a Falcons team that's definitely a little older than most teams in the league. It was one of the oldest teams in the league last year. So when it comes to those type of things, when it comes to where the bye week is and how often they're traveling, those are the things I look for. So from week 5, they got the London game against the Jets. Then they have a bye the next week, which means the early season bye at week 6. Then after that bye, they're at Miami in week 7, at home against Carolina week 8. Then they're back on the road in week 9 at the Saints, and then at the Cowboys, and then back home again in week 11 against the Patriots. And then 3 of the next 4 games after that are back on the road. So you're talking about between week 7 and 15, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have 6 road games.
Yeah.
And that's 6 road games after their bye week.
Yeah.
So it's not saying that they're going to lose any of those games, not saying that they're going to have a rough season. I'm just saying that, to me, that's easily the toughest stretch of the season. The fact that they got to go to London, then they get an early season bye, and then they have, 6 road games over the next 7 to 8 weeks after that. Like that's going to be rough, man.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we knew going in, right, that the schedule was going to be hard because they were only going to have, I think, 8 home games, and only 7 of them were true home games because one of them was the
London.
The London game. So we knew they were going to have a road heavy schedule, which obviously sucks. But then to have them, I mean, I think they played 2 home games back to back once, and that's it. Like they have to go on the road every other week, basically, throughout the whole season. I think the only 2 home games they play back to back are weeks 4 and 5, and technically week 5 is London game. Yeah. So they don't actually ever play 2 straight home games in the entire season, which, I mean, they got shafted. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Like I mean, this is a very difficult thing to do. They're not really going to have a lot of rest. They're going to be constantly traveling. It's just, that obviously is not much we can do about that. And because of the odd number of games that the NFL is playing now, there's going to be, teams that unfortunately some will have more road games, some will have more home games, and Falcons get doubly screwed because they have a London game. So it's rough.
So it's not, to me, in terms of their opponents, it's not really a daunting schedule in front of them. But just from the aspect of them being on the road frequently at a and along with them having that early season bye, I'm more of a fan of having a bye maybe around early November. At least let's get to the halfway mark of the season, and then let's see where things are. And I think that's where the bye comes into play. We around week 9, week 10, week 11, but you have a new regime, a new coaching staff, a new front office, trying to get everything, trying to get these guys acclimated, trying to get these guys, on one accord. And 6 weeks into the season, you have to hop on a plane and go to London, and then you got a bye week.
Right.
So it's like if you're trying to catch rhythm, because here's the thing to fans. I mean, it's more to it than just hopping on a plane and go to London. The practice week is going to be different. It's going to be modified because you're going to be traveling earlier than expected because you're going to have to get to London maybe about 2 or 3 days before you go into a game stateside. So the practices schedule is going to be kind of shuffled around a little bit, and then again, you're dealing in some cases you're dealing with possible jet lag because you're traveling to London and then you're traveling back, and then you're trying to the practice schedule is going to be a little different there too because when you're traveling back, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most teams don't really start practicing after coming back from London until maybe around Tuesday, Wednesday. They give them that 1 day of rest after they come back, but most teams practice that Monday. So they won't have that. They won't have that option. So again, that's what I look for. And that's, like I said, the opponents don't necessarily fear me. There are some tough games on the schedule that I think fans really need to circle and pay attention to because there's going to be some tough games. One that comes to mind, Washington in week 4. I think Washington is going to be a lot better than what teams think than people think. The Dolphins is going to be really good this year. Dallas should be back if they're healthy, at least on the offensive side of the ball. They should be pretty good.
Right.
But that's the one thing that stands out to me, the frequency in traveling.
Yeah. And the early bye. I mean,
and the early bye.
For those asking why the Falcons got saddled with the early bye, it's because the NFL scheduled them in London for week 5. Like and they're supposed to give you a bye after an international game. So that's why.
Yeah.
So they double screwed them. They made them play the London game early, and then they forced them to have the early bye. So they
That's why teams don't like the London game. A lot of teams don't like it because of that aspect, because of the fact that you have to travel to London, and then you get a bye week immediately after that. So if you're playing in week 4, if you're playing in London in week 4, you got a bye in week 5. That's barely into October. So then you have to play 2, almost 3 months straight of football. So in this case with the Falcons, let's just say hypothetically they make the playoffs. That's 11 straight games they will have before the playoffs start.
Right.
No time to rest.
No, it's wild, man.
You're right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's like, I mean, if they make the playoffs, like, they're gonna deserve it after this. Like, I mean, the schedule is doing them no favors. Like, they do play a 4th place schedule, and that obviously is gonna help with like they don't play necessarily a murderer's row of opponents this year, but in terms of how it's constructed with the early bye with only 7 real home games, I mean, it's certainly stacked against them in that manner. So this is probably a good year to be the first year of like an Arthur Smith regime, right? Because they're not necessarily expected to be this juggernaut. So if they can navigate this relatively tough schedule and manage to make the playoffs off of it, it'll make Arthur Smith look really good. And if they struggle, they end up, about 500. No one's going to necessarily blame Arthur Smith for only 7 home games and, coming off a schedule where they have to go to London and they have a really early bye. I mean, the schedule it's going to make the season harder. There's no doubt about that. But, I mean, you look at the opponents, it's not necessarily the worst, but they're just never really going to be able to get comfortable at home. They're not really ever going to have a stretch of games where they can kind of relax. It's just home away. So it's at least they get to come home. They only have one actual road trip other than I think they do have only one real road trip where they're going like on the road like 2 weeks in a row. I think that's like week 9 and
But
10.
but if you
Yeah,
but if you look at between week 9 and week 15, there's 2 road games, and week 9 starts. That would be when? That would be November,
I
the
think
beginning of
so.
November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you're talking that whole all pretty much all of November going into late December, only 2 road games. Not to mention, we pointed out earlier in the chat their week 17 matchup in Buffalo, which
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure is going to be a blizzard.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's not too bad because I'm planning to cover that game because, in case you
Not,
guys
yeah,
don't know, I live in New York. So,
you can have that one, Kevin. Nobody's
yeah, no
volunteering to
one's going to
cover that
fight me
game.
for that one, right?
No, you can have that
You have to
one, dude.
drive through the frozen tundra to get there, but it's okay.
If Dave asks who wants to cover it, no one's raising their hand but you, dude. Like it's all
I've been
yours.
waiting so many years to actually be able to drive to a Falcons game. So, it's every like 4 or 5 years it's going to happen. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a difficult schedule, and we can talk more about the opponents and more of those details coming up. I do want to remind you guys, if you're enjoying the show, please do like and subscribe. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. You can like the show on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at Falcoholic Live. And if you're interested in supporting the show on a monthly basis, we have a Patreon page. The link to that is patreon.com/Falcoholic Live. You can get access to some exclusive perks, including a patron Q&A that's exclusively for our patrons. Those are a lot of fun. We're going to be having some very interesting guests on those over the coming weeks, so you don't want to miss that, guys. So check that out as well. And then I have a donation from George Costanza. Who else? The show benefactor, George, with the $3. Thank you so much for your support, man. He says, I wouldn't be shocked if we're 7-1 going into the Dallas game. I think this team is going to soar. When the Falcons make the NFC Championship and Super Bowl, I'm going to buy you guys a studio with my winnings. Pitts will have 15 TDs this year. Bet. Yeah, man. I mean, if the Falcons win the Super Bowl, you're going to be making big-time money. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to send some of that our way, we definitely won't argue with you. And you know what? We won't argue with any of your takes ever again if you predict the Falcons, going to this and winning the Super Bowl this year. So, yeah, so let's break it down on a week-to-week basis for those that haven't actually seen the schedule. So we've got week 1, the Falcons, and what seems to be kind of a tradition over the last several years, we'll be playing the Eagles at home in week 1. That'll be on the September 12th. That's just a normal 1 p.m. game. And that's an interesting game, right, because the Eagles are going to be starting Jalen Hurts. That's a team that's was significantly worse last year than expected. So I know the Falcons are favored right now in that game. What do you think about that week 1 matchup?
The Eagles are always tricky, man.
Yeah, they are.
They're always tricky. It doesn't matter who they remember. Was it 2016 when they were on the road in Philly? And
I can't remember if it was that or maybe it was 2017. I can't remember.
No, that was 2016. And I believe that I might be wrong on this, but I think that might have been after a bye week. They were on the road at Philly, and Philly gave them a loss, but because of that was a really tough-minded defensive team.
Yeah, that was like the lowest points they scored all year, I think, the Falcons.
Yeah, I think they had 9 points going into the fourth quarter, something like that. But yeah, the Eagles are always a tricky team, man, and they're 3.5-point favorites now. I think on paper, the matchups, especially from the Falcons' offensive perspective, the matchups are definitely in their favor. If they're able to neutralize that Eagles defensive line, I think they can win a number of battles in the passing game. The Eagles are lacking some athleticism at linebacker. Darius Slay is a solid corner, but opposite him is Avonte Maddox, who's definitely streaky. They're introducing 2 new safety starters this year. One is Anthony Harris, who's getting up in age. So, it's definitely something that they can win. But again, the Eagles are always tricky.
Yeah, that's a tough one to predict. These two teams always kind of play each other close, even when one has been bad and one has been good. So
every game,
every game pretty much. And then, I mean, I think if the Falcons get the offensive line figured out, I mean, I think we're going to see in this game that Arthur Smith's not going to leave Matt Ryan out there to dry like
Right.
Dirk Cutter did.
Right.
So I think they're going to be okay, on the offensive line. We'll see how that shakes out. But
To me, the offensive line is the biggest question of the entire going into the season. I mean, I know they're introducing a new defensive coordinator, new scheme, but I think we kind of already expect on that side of the ball they're going to be good enough to skate by. They may not be juggernauts in year one on the defensive side of the ball, but I think they may be good enough to win a few games there. But to me, the biggest question mark is the offensive line. And I think this is a great test going into the season, going up against Fletcher Cox and Derek Barnett and Brandon Graham.
Oh, yeah, trial by fire for whoever's starting at center and left guard, that's for sure.
Right.
So
man,
see. Yeah.
Hey, you guys sure you want – you sure you want to put Dolvin out there?
Right. Yeah. It's like, we're gonna talk about that in great detail. Don't worry, guys. But it's that's definitely one of the most interesting battles, I think. And we got a donation from $1 from Kevin Waldrop. Kevin, man, thank you for your support, man. We do appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, week 2 now we have. Hold on, I know this, but yeah, we're gonna be at the Bucks, and that's gonna be an afternoon game. So more folks might get a chance to watch that on TV. But, yeah, I mean, that one's interesting, right? Because the Falcons are going to right away be thrown in against a, reigning Super Bowl champion. So I think that away game against Tampa is going to tell us a lot, about where the team is in terms of, how competitive can they really be? Like, can they challenge a reigning Super Bowl champion in any way? Like, can they, and I think that they will challenge them. Like, it's a division game. The Falcons did get blown off the turf by the Bucks last year, so
But they challenged them in both games last year. They had a big lead at halftime in the first matchup, and they clearly outplayed the Bucks in the first half of that game. And in the second matchup, it was a 1-score game halfway in the fourth quarter. Until the Bucks finally pulled away. But it is a good test. Again, another defense that this offensive line is going to have to really tighten up on, man. This is a start to the season for an offensive line that's going to be coming in and facing plenty of question marks. You got the Eagles defensive line, then you got the Bucks defensive line, which is arguably the best in the league, if not one of. And then they got 2 weeks later, they got, in my opinion, the best defensive line in the league. In week 4, my opinion. Now, if you want to argue with it, we can. Anybody wants to debate against that, we can. But Chase Young is coming to town in week 4, and
it's gonna be rough. Gonna be rough to say the least. So I mean, I think they have a chance in that Bucks game, but I think if you're trying to predict the season, you would be wise to chalk up that away game in Tampa Bay as a loss. Not because you think the Falcons suck or anything, but they're going to lose some games. That's probably one of the losses. So, just if we're being fair, we should be fair. We don't want to be total homers and say they're going to go, 17-0 or something. So
no much. Yeah,
exactly.
I honestly, it just looking at the schedule right now, not even factoring in certain things as far as schemes and game plans and things of that nature.
Right.
I can see a 2-2 start to the season before the winning game.
That would be drastically better than any of the most recent.
They started 0-5 last year.
If they go 2-2, people will be like, "Oh shit!" Like they're gonna go to the playoffs,
Right. They started.
They're not like 0-5. Oh shit! Okay, this is
right. Right.
Yeah, man.
So we'll see. If you remember that Super Bowl year that they have a bye. Their bye week came in week 5. I want to say
something like that.
Because. Or was it week 6? It was one of the two, because I think the following game after that bye was that Chargers game, which they were flat early on, and the Chargers ended up stealing one. But they had an early bye that season as well. So again, it's something to be mindful of. But this is definitely a start to the season that they're going to be tested for sure.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree with you there. Week 3, it's a little bit of a let up. Then you're going at the Giants.
Is it?
I think so.
With Saquon? Is it?
Well, it's Saquon and Daniel Jones, so
it is now that Giants
is
defense.
Saquon still going to be playing in week 3?
Come on.
I'm kidding.
Come
I'm
on.
kidding.
That Giants defense was
They
the
were
strength
actually
of the
decent.
team.
Yeah.
That was the strength of the team last year.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So no,
yeah.
they're not. I don't think they're going to be a pushover. But I think if it comes down to offense, they can't keep up with Atlanta. Like it's just not going to. Like if the Atlanta offense is as good as we think it could be, I think they're just going to be able to outpace some teams. And I think the Giants offense is a team they could just kind of overwhelm.
Well, I think they may be able to hold their own. But again, this is, Arthur Smith is really going to have to, prove himself this year when it comes to him being a play caller. I know he's earned a job as a head coach, but now you have that responsibility as a head coach and a play caller. And starting the season right here, he's got an opportunity to try to put some points on the board against some fairly solid defenses.
Yeah. That's going to be a storyline to follow as well because they, none of those are pushovers.
That Washington game scares me, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That Washington game scares me.
I mean, week 4. At least it's home. It's home. But...
It's home, but that's a damn good Washington defense. They gave Brady fits in the wild card game.
Oh yeah, they did with Taylor Heineke at quarterback.
With Taylor Heineke, right?
Yeah.
So
and I mean, it might be Taylor Heineke again for all we know, but
it might be. We'll see. But
we'll see. Probably not. But
that Washington game scares me.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough one. If I had to pick 2 wins and 2 losses, I mean, I'd pick wins. At with the Eagles and the Giants, and I'd probably pick 2 losses, at Bucks and, versus Washington if I had to put money down. But, I mean, I think they have a chance to win all 4 games, but I think if they come out of that stretch 2-2, we're probably going to be pretty happy. I mean, it's...
Let me ask you, looking at the schedule, circle one part of the schedule where you say, okay, this is going to make or break their season.
I mean, it's tough because, it's kind of hard throughout. Like, they don't really have any big gaps. I guess I would say probably like that midpoint, right? Like, after the London game, you've got at Dolphins versus Carolina, at New Orleans, at Dallas versus Patriots. Like, I think they need to come out of that. They need to win, 2 or more of those games basically to be competitive. Like they can't drop 4 of those games. And like the Panthers game, they're going to be favored in. But the rest of them, are they going to be favored? Are they going to be favored at Dallas? They might be favored against the Patriots. We'll see how good the Patriots look. But they got to go to Miami. They got to go to New Orleans. Maybe New Orleans ends up being bad, but that stretch in my mind is the tough stretch of this. Really tough stretch of the schedule, and they kind of need to come out of that probably winning 2 or more games to
but
stay on track.
We say that every year about the Saints, man. As much as we despise them, we say it every year. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be you got to throw records out of the window when it comes to rivalry games. Yeah. So we'll definitely see. One thing I do notice, and it's a surprise because of what I thought was an emphasis being placed on it. There's only one divisional game over the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, because this last year, I'm assuming you're about to talk about it. We had like 3 straight division games to close out the season or something.
Well, I thought that was the thing that the league was leaning towards, having more divisional games in that last month of the season. But they only have from December 29th to January 9th. There's only one divisional game, and that's the season finale.
Yes, the Saints. So I do like ending the season with the Saints. I think that's fun. I think they should do that more often. But
I'm tired of ending the season with the Buck at Tampa.
Yeah,
done it like 8 years in a row.
Yeah, like come on, like give us the Saints to end the season. At least that one's got the rivalry aspect. Even if like 1 or more of the teams is out of it, you still have the rivalry aspect. But it seems like this year we don't have to deal with that. So I mean, last year it was super back heavy in terms of the division. I think we played 1 division game before like week 9 last year. It was wild.
Yeah, so, that second half of the season after that much needed bye, and then that part came after the Dan Quinn firing too. So
so it's crazy. Yeah. So then week 5, we have the London game. It's the Jets. It's gonna be early morning. We're gonna have to get up bright and early to cover that one. Oh boy! But
I don't know about that. I'll meet you guys at halftime, man.
Right? Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I mean, it's the Jets. I don't think the Jets are going to be particularly good this year, but I think with Robert Saleh, they're not going to be like a pushover like they were this last year. So, I think that the Falcons should be able to handle them, but, that's the only good thing about that London game is it's against the Jets. So there's probably only like a handful of teams you'd want to play over the Jets, like maybe the Lions. But, so.
I think the Jets are going to be. They're not going to make the playoffs.
No, I mean, I think they're going to win like 5 or 6 games.
They're going to be a scrappy team.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Exactly. I think they're going to win 5 or 6 games, probably look better than that against a lot of teams. Like, I think Robert Saleh is going to get the defense to like a serviceable level, but that offense has just so far to go. And I'm not like a huge Zach Wilson believer either. So, like, I don't think he's going to be as bad as what they've had, but I would be surprised if they're really a competitive offense this year. I love Elijah Vera Tucker. I like a lot of the building blocks there, but I just don't think it's going to take off this year. So, what's up, guys? What's up, Devin Johnson? I know we had NDY in the chat says everyone should have 2 buys. I totally agree. They need to do that soon because if we're getting to 18 weeks, we need to have 2 buys. Like, come on, guys. All teams deserve 2 buys.
I'm surprised they didn't enforce it this year, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. Honestly, like I think they need to do that soon, and I think they will in the next few years. But they do need to get those buys coming as soon as they can, because it's just not fair. Like if you have an early buy, you're gonna end up playing like assuming you make the playoffs, you can play like 16 straight games. I mean that's ridiculous.
6 straight games, right,
yeah.
man? Like
that's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
totally ridiculous. Yeah, another $3 from George. He says, so the only time I ever actually gambled was in Vegas in 2006. I dropped a little less than $4,000 in one night at the craps table, but at least they comped my suite at Caesar's Palace. He says he's betting $500 on Atlanta to make the NFC Championship and then another $500 on the Super Bowl win. Yeah, I mean, you're going to make like, on that $500, I mean, you'll make like $20,000 or something like that. So, I mean, yeah, if you got the cash to throw at that, I mean that's always I think an interesting bet because you're making like plus 6,000 or something on it, so
yeah,
you're gonna make great money if you hit on both of those. So it's crazy. Yeah, K Green, it's week 6 is the bye. By the way, we were about to say that. Yeah, so it is week 6 is the bye week. It's not the worst bye week, but it's close. So
it's only again it's only. It's only I'm looking at it from the aspect of again it's not tough in terms of who they're playing. It's just it's an older team that has a bye week before the midway point of the season, and like we were pointing out, if let's just hypothetically say they make the playoffs or they're in the playoff hunt, they have to play 11 straight games before the playoffs. So even if they make a wild card game, that's another 3 games. That's 14 consecutive games they'll be playing with very little rest in between. And this is the Falcons team that we know that they're a little old in the tooth in certain positions. So we'll see how that goes. But that's something to keep an eye on.
Oh, absolutely, definitely something to keep track of. All right, then we got week 7. Heading back out on the road to the Dolphins. And that's going to be a hard game. I know people think of the Dolphins. They're like, oh, it's the Dolphins. The Dolphins were good last year.
The Dolphins they're on the doorstep, man.
Yeah, I think Tua had, an injury-plagued, kind of year where he's recovering from that hip injury. I think he's going to be a better quarterback than people think. I think people put way too much stock in that kind of... Like, people just seem to forget that he was coming off this, debilitating hip injury. And still was mostly fine. I mean, he wasn't great, but I mean, for a rookie quarterback, I thought he was fine. He's gonna be reunited, with Jalen Waddle. They have the building blocks there for I think a really good team. I think they've built the team really well. So I think that is going to be a tough game. I think the Dolphins are going to be a contender this year.
I think they may actually be the Bills' toughest tests in that division.
Maybe, yeah.
So. We'll see if they can protect Tua. That's going to matter. Right. Yeah,
they're betting a lot on some of those young guys stepping up, like Robert Hunt. I think was a really pleasant surprise for them. They're going to need Austin Jackson to play better. They've been really good at adding draft picks and adding value, but they've they traded away a lot of pieces to get there. So we'll see if they can keep pace, with some of these draft additions and some of these other guys they've brought in. And the defense is good as well. With Brian Flores there, he's going to get more out of those guys than the talent.
Definitely.
Then we got first matchup with the Panthers. We got the Panthers in Week 8 at home on Halloween. So that'll be a fun one, right?
Right.
But yeah, that's I think the Panthers are going to be pretty bad, honestly.
Really?
I do not believe in Darnold at all. I think that was a huge mistake. Especially since they passed on Fields because of it, because they couldn't admit that they screwed up, So I think that's gonna haunt them, man. I think that's gonna haunt them forever.
Like I said all along, man. Tepper, I'm sure Tepper was pissed.
Yes, because he jumped the gun.
He didn't have much of a choice. Being honest with you, I felt like he needed to pull the trigger because there was no way he's going to get him. But
I agree. Like, we both thought Fields was going at 4, so it's not like we were expecting him to be there. But I thought that Teddy Bridgewater's fine. Like, you didn't have to trade for Darnold. Like, you could have ridden it out, seen who was there at 7. If the guy you want's not there, you take something else, and then you trade for Darnold. But you heard this is a tangent, but there wasn't a market for Darnold outside of Carolina, so them aggressively pursuing Darnold was unnecessary. So
what did I say early on when Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot was hired? I said the young regimes, they often get their young quarterbacks early. If it's not year 1, year 2, they're going to get their guy in the fold. And this was because remember, they wanted Deshaun.
Yeah.
And that shit
that did not work out. Yeah.
That sailed quickly. They
moved on from that one. Yeah.
Yeah, they moved on from that plan. But I knew that they were going to try to make some type of move this offseason, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it rolls.
See. Yeah, I think they're going to probably be the worst team in the NFC South, but we'll see how. I don't think that's going to be like
I think it's
13 bad, but I don't think they're going to be a 5-6 win team.
I think the Saints are going to get exposed this year.
I hope you're right. I hope the Saints fall off a cliff. Nothing would make me happier, Eric. But
yeah.
I still think the bones of that team are pretty good. The quarterback is now a problem, but I think the bones of the Saints are too good to be really bad.
You don't even need to go any further. If the quarterback is the problem, then this is not. They're
that's
not.
Why I'm thinking the Saints are. I think the Saints could be a 500 team this year. I just don't think they're going to be bad.
Yeah,
I think the defense is good enough to carry them, pretty far, and they have enough pieces. They have a really good offensive line, other than Andrews Pete, but.
I think they're approaching this with their chest sticking out a little bit, as far as because the team and organization is going to try to prove we can do this without Drew. We miss Drew, but we can do it without him. And not with Trotton Jameis out there.
You saw how well that worked for Belichick last year, so.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing about Jameis. We'll continue on with the Saints because it's Week 9 at the Saints. So there you go.
All right, there you go.
Going on the road to the Saints. So great seg. Yeah. I just feel like Jameis is the polar opposite of what they had in Breeze. Cannon arm, gonna chuck it downfield and damn the consequences. He's like the polar opposite of Breeze.
Right.
So,
and the interesting thing about that is the way their receiver depth chart is laid out. You mainly have a bunch of guys that are pretty much lumped in the same mode as a receiver. And you got Deontay Harris, that's pretty much the only field stretcher in the receiving core right now, because of the fact that you had a older quarterback in Drew Brees that couldn't throw deep. So you collected a bunch of big body receivers that are not going to scare defenses. They're not going to take the top off defenses. So now you're trying to attack defenses with a guy in Jameis who has, of course, great arm strength, but he doesn't have anybody that can, hey man, catch this 50-yard post. I'm not worried about Michael Thomas doing that. I'm not worried about Marquez Callaway doing that. Those guys are not really They're not
They
going to
did
scare
not
deep.
address receiver at all.
They
Like,
didn't. They
they
didn't.
lost Emmanuel Sanders and didn't add anyone.
Right.
So
So it's going to be interesting to see how they approach the game now. Now that they have a quarterback that can actually throw deep, but they don't have targets that can go deep, that can stress defenses.
I gotta pull up their depth chart because that wide receiver group is so bad,
It's
man.
it's a bunch of just big. You got, of course, you got Michael Thomas, but you got Marquez Callaway, you got little Jordan Humphrey, you got your field stretcher and Deontay Harris there.
Yeah.
I believe Tre'Quan Smith is still there as well, but he's kind of struggled a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
And
he's like the only deep threat though. Like
but
it's
and I wouldn't even consider him like, oh my god, like we have the game plan for Tre'Quan Smith.
right. I mean,
Like,
he's a good like he has speed, but yeah, I mean, he hasn't stepped up the way we
he's been
hoped,
really inconsistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the interesting thing, I didn't even know about this until a few days ago, but they only have, I think, two of those guys on their depth chart are signed past next season.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah,
they could see a complete, you know, dump of receivers after this year.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so I'm going to read off the depth chart for you here. So we got Michael Thomas and Tre'Quan Smith are currently the two starters.
Yeah.
Marquez Callaway, Deontay Harris. You know, Deontay Harris did some good stuff. Like, he's a decent number 3, but I don't think they have a number 2. Like, I don't think they have a number 2. Like, they have some quality number 3s. And then it's just Juwan Johnson, Lil Jordan Humphrey. You know, these
guys are the same.
UDFAs. Like,
They're all the same. They're big, burly receivers that run 4.6, 4.7. They don't scare you when it comes to going deep. Like it's
right. And their top tight end is Nick Van Nett and Adam Troutman. Neither one has done anything.
Neither-
so they don't
neither
have
one are
the Jared Cook threat anymore.
Nope. So again, like it's just their offense is going to look totally different, and I think Peyton is approaching this as if like, hey, I can do this with these type of weapons, and I don't think he really can.
Yeah.
If I'm playing the Saints today, you're going to have to throw the ball 40 times. I'm not letting
because teams are going to load the box. Like that's what the Falcons are going to do.
I'm taking Kamara out, and you're going to have to beat me with those big receivers all game.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting. The offensive line's still good there. You know, they still have Alvin Kamara. They still have Latavius Murray. These are good running backs, good offensive line, but they can't rely on those like really hyper accurate intermediate throws anymore because they have Taysom and they have Jameis. They can't, if they don't get the run game going, it's going to be tough to be a consistent offense with those guys.
Also, I'm interested in knowing because they're going to play quarterback roulette. They're going to play the carousel in the middle of the game. It's going to happen. They're not going to start Jameis and Jameis is going to play all the way through. I want to know how that's going to affect the offense.
No one's ever been able to do that well with two quarterbacks.
I mean, Peyton did it with Taysom, but at the same time, it messed up the rhythm at times for Drew Brees.
Yeah.
So now you take Brees out the equation. You got a quarterback in Jameis Winston. Let's just be honest. He's trying to prove himself right now.
Right.
He's trying to play for his future. The last thing he wants is to get pulled halfway in the first quarter so they can run Wildcat with Taysom Hill.
Right.
So how is Peyton going to manage that?
I mean,
it's going to be interesting, man.
I would say pick one. I would say a normal goddamn offensive coordinator.
I would say pick one too, but the ego of Sean Payton is not going to say that. The ego of Sean Payton is saying, I can score points, I can win games by rotating these quarterbacks in and out and not having legitimate deep threats at receiver. And I think it's going to catch up to him.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the offense is going to be the problem on that team.
I think they're going to be stagnant, yeah.
So, all right. Well, speaking of offense, let's move on to Week 10 at Dallas, where we're going to be going up against one of the best offenses in the league, I think, with Dak healthy. You saw them those first, 4 or 5 games before Dak got hurt. I mean, they were ripping it up. So that could be a really fun fireworks show. In terms, I wouldn't be surprised if that actually ends up getting flexed if both of these teams are playing well.
Look, man, I'm gonna be honest.
Go for it.
I want a 40 burger.
Yeah, I mean it's Dan Quinn, so
I want a 40. That's the only reason. Revenge game. That's the only reason why I want a 40 burger. I have nothing against Dan Quinn, but I got to drop 40 on Dan, man. I'm sorry. We got to drop 40.
Yeah. I mean,
You're
we have to. Yeah.
we have to. There's no way I am going to allow Dan Quinn to coach against this offense, knowing he knows these guys like the back of his hand, and he bottles the. I swear, man, if that Dallas defense puts the clamps on this Falcons offense, I'm going to be upset.
Oh, dude, there's no chance. Dude, Kyle Pitts is gonna have like 200 yards in that game.
But
He's
the
gonna
thing
feast on that cover 3.
the interesting thing, well, here's what I'm hearing. It's not going to be. It's going to be. They're going to incorporate cover 3, but I think they're still sticking with a 3-4 base. And if they're not,
Really?
they're going to go. But it's going to have some 4-3 tendencies. But here's the thing, though: they don't have legitimate 4-3 defensive ends. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll take that back. They don't have legitimate 3-4.
No, they're a 4-3 defense. Yeah.
They have 4-3 personnel, and they're going to try to play with 3-4 tendencies. And I don't know if that's going to work. You know Dan Quinn, right?
He loves to stockpile those inside-outside guys.
That's what he loves.
Which ended up actually, I think that actually might work out well for the Falcons now with Dean Pease, who's going to line these guys up like literally everywhere. So maybe that actually makes sense for the team that Dan Quinn's no longer a part of. But yeah, I mean, I don't know why you'd switch off a 4-3 in Dallas. I just don't get it. But
because I don't get it. They don't have the type of guys for that.
They don't have the personnel.
They don't. And the secondary has some troubles last year. And what do you do to try to solve that? You bring over DeMonte Casey and Keanu Neal. Okay.
I mean, Keanu Neal, okay, sure, but like,
I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's like, man, I'm looking at that like, okay, that's putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound.
Keanu Neal is not a good matchup on Kyle Pitts though, because that's not really Neal's
strength. And KZ is streaky.
And KZ's too small to cover Kyle Pitts.
I just, again, going into that particular matchup, I do like what the Cowboys will have at the linebacker level, because we're looking at a possibility in them starting Michael Parsons and maybe Jabril Cox, who are definitely Dan Quinn type linebackers, and I think he's going to make it work. They still have Leighton Vander Esch, so they're going to be athletic at that aspect. So this may not be a Kyle Pitts game. What this may be is a Julio and Calvin Ridley game. That's what this may be.
Trayvon Diggs lined up on Julio. I'll watch that.
Right. That's what we made, because if they wanna go ahead and have some, have KZ play center field. All right. Okay.
KZ coming off an Achilles, we'll see.
I mean, I just, again, it's an interesting matchup because you have a coach who knows that offensive personnel, but on the other side, you have an offensive personnel who knows how that coach thinks. He's practiced against that. They practice against that every day. Yeah. So this is not, no one really has much of an advantage in this matchup. It's going to be strictly who can win these matchups. And on paper, I like these matchups for the Falcons.
Yeah, me too. Me too, for sure. So we'll see how it looks, when we actually get there. A lot can change by week 10, but we'll see how it goes.
Definitely.
Week 11 versus the Patriots, and that is our only primetime game. It's our Thursday night football game. Falcons haven't beaten the Patriots in like 20 years, so maybe this will be the year. They don't have Tom Brady. They have some players coming back. Like, they're not going to be as bad as they were last year.
I'm already aggravated. I'm already
aggravated. Yeah, I can just see the coverage now. It's going to be all Super Bowl coverage. So, don't watch the pregame show.
Man, come on, man. This 2021. Like, come on.
Yeah, they're never going to get over that. That's like their favorite thing in the world to talk about.
Already aggravated. Oh, this is the first time Bill Belichick has played in Atlanta since Super Bowl 50. Who cares? I don't care. I don't care, man.
Yeah, it's going to suck. All right, Week 12 at the Jaguars. A game that the Falcons probably expect to win. Even with Trevor Lawrence there, that Jags roster is bad. It's bad, Eric. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad.
I like what they did this offseason.
I mean, I like what they did this offseason. It's still bad. I mean, it's like I like what the Falcons did this offseason. That roster's still not great.
I'm not gonna say it's bad. I like the signing of Marvin Jones. I love the drafting of Travis Etienne. I will say this: there's a lot more team speed than last year
Yes,
with the
absolutely.
Jaguars. Now there's a lot more other components that have to come together, but that is definitely a fast team. I would say that.
Yep, it is fast. They're faster.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're going to be better offense, but
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think they would definitely be respectable offensively.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And then we got Week 13 rematch with the Bucks. This will be at home. Yeah, I mean, we already talked about the matchup, and it's going to be a tough one. We'll see how the Bucks are playing coming off the Super Bowl. We'll see how they're looking at this time of the year. Anything can happen. But again, a tough game, tough matchup against the reigning Super Bowl champions there. So
Right.
we'll see. Obviously, the Falcons have a chance, especially because it's a divisional game.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see how that goes.
Right. Divisional games are always up in the air, man. It's always
Yeah,
a coin toss.
always.
Yep.
Week 14 at the Panthers, another 1:00 game. Again, I think the Panthers are going to be the worst team in the NFC South. I think they're going to be kind of a cellar dweller this year. I think this is a game the Falcons are probably hoping to win, probably expecting to win if they want to be competitive. So
Yeah.
they probably need to sweep the Panthers. 'Cause I don't know if they're going to be able to sweep. They're not going to sweep the Bucks more than likely. They may be able to sweep the Saints, but asking for that is always dicey. I think they can sweep the Panthers. So if they can get that one, that will help them. If they can get that one and split the division games with, the Saints and the Bucks, I think that'll put them in a pretty good position. So, Week 15 at San Francisco, another afternoon game. This one's interesting, right? Because Trey Lance probably starting by now.
You sure?
I mean, it's Jimmy Garoppolo, man.
We've always said that Trey needs a year at least before he's ready to go.
Yeah, but is Shanahan actually going to sit him for a year? Like, if he was behind Matt Ryan, I think he would sit the whole year. But behind Jimmy Garoppolo,
you know what? I'll put it to you this way: they play that to me. That can definitely be a legitimate case for being the best division in football.
Oh yeah, I
From
agree
top
with
to
you.
bottom.
Yeah.
Do you think Trey Lance can win that division?
No, but I mean, honestly, I
That's-
don't know that the 49ers view themselves as like the top dog in that division yet. But I think they're hoping to be there soon.
I think all four teams in that division can legitimately win it.
Yeah.
From top to bottom. Like that is a loaded division. There's no 3-13, 4-12, or 4-13 team. To me, I think all four teams can make a legitimate run and make the playoffs and win that division. So if you're Kyle Shanahan, are you ready for Lance to possibly win some games and win that division? I don't know.
Yeah. That's a good question.
I don't know. Like that's to me, that's a hell of that's a ballsy move.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's the thing though. Like if Shanahan thinks Lance has the offense down,
Right.
like he'll play him, But
Right.
it depends on how pissed he is at Jimmy Garoppolo probably, or if Jimmy Garoppolo is even healthy.
Because you also have to keep in mind. Look at the other quarterbacks in that. Look at the other offenses in that division. Seattle's going to put up points. Arizona's definitely going to put up points.
Yeah. It's going to be rough.
I mean, are you trusting a raw rookie to hang with Matthew Stafford and the Rams? And
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. That's an interesting one though, for sure. I guess I'm assuming Lance will be starting by then, but I mean, it could still be Garoppolo.
I think it may still be Garoppolo.
Yeah. All right, Week 16 versus the Lions. They should win this game.
Yeah, we said that last year.
Yeah, they should. I mean, they always blow games against the Lions, but they honestly should have beaten the Lions last year. Thank God Todd Gurley scored that touchdown, or else we'd probably be talking about another player with our first round pick. So thank God Todd Gurley did blow that game, but the Falcons outplayed the Lions in that game. I mean, that's pretty clear. So
the man was told.
Anyway.
The man was told to fall short right before the play. He told you, don't score.
He can't not score, Eric. Okay, it's not in his DNA.
Whatever, man. Whatever. Unbelievable.
Look, Todd Gurley supports the tank. Okay, he's a true hero, just like Young Wei Koo.
He's not even on the team. He's support a tape. You're not even on the. You're not even on the team to see the new draft pick next year.
Yep, poor guy.
You following the sword for what? You're not even on the team to see the new draft pick next year.
He was trying to get that 10 touchdown incentive, man.
Whatever. Fullback.
Right.
That's what he is. Yeah. Anyway, let's keep going. I'm sorry.
All right, we got. No, you're good. We got week 17 at Buffalo. So the game that I'm gonna maybe be able to drive to. So that's fun. Yeah, so that's gonna be a tough game, and that sucks.
It's gonna be cold.
Yeah, it's gonna be cold as hell. Yeah.
The Bills are one of the more physical teams on both sides of the ball in the league. Yep. Take it from if any one of you never played football, take it from someone. I played football before, of course, high school and semi-pro level. I played in cold weather. You don't want to take those hits in cold weather. They stick a little harder than they do during the fall. In the winter, and you take a hit like that, it lasts for 2 or 3 plays. Like, you still feel it. That's gonna be a rough one. Let's hope by that point the Bills have the division wrapped up, maybe have a number 2 seed, and they're starting to rest some guys at that point.
Right? Yeah, that's our hope. That's what we're hoping for there.
Yeah, that's not gonna be a fun game.
Right? No, that one's gonna be tough, man.
Also, and we're also going to see Kevin out there in
full parka. Yeah,
full parka.
You don't even recognize me. Yeah.
Snow flurry smacking him in the face.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll have to ski down to the stadium from the park.
Yeah. Credentials are blowing everywhere because the wind's going, and
it's gonna be wild. Yeah,
man, have fun, man. You got that one, dude.
Yeah, hopefully the weather will be okay so I can actually drive there. But despite rumors, it doesn't actually snow all the time here, so that the chances are good I'll be able to make it. So.
It snows in Buffalo, particularly.
It does. Yeah, not that far from Buffalo. So.
Yeah.
All right, and then finally we have Week 18. That's Falcons versus Saints at home to close out the season. Again, it's fun. It's fun to end on a rivalry game. Hopefully the Falcons have clinched their playoff spot by now. But if not, maybe you can knock the Saints out, or maybe you can just embarrass them.
Last time the Falcons had a season finale home game against the Saints, they made the Super Bowl. Just putting it out there for all you theorists.
Yeah, all you conspiracy theorists out there.
I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah. That's a good thing to think about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm hopeful that they'll win one of those Saints games. I'm hopeful they'll win one of the Bucs games, and then, hopefully, can sweep the Panthers. That would be good. Be a good start.
You got a prediction?
Yeah, I was about to ask you for yours, but yeah, I mean, I think right now I'm looking at like 10-7, maybe. If things go well, maybe 10-7.
That feels so weird to calculate 17 games.
I know, dude. I had to stop myself from saying 9-7.
Right.
Yeah, right. 10-7. Okay, yeah.
10-7.
Yeah, but I think it could be more or less. I think around there is pretty close to what they'll be. I think they'll be competitive.
I'll play it safe. I'll say 10-7. I think of course they have to stay healthy.
Yeah.
If they're two factors have to play out a certain way for me this year in order for this team to really make a push. That offensive line has to be improved. They have to be consistent. Mm-hmm. That defense, I honestly don't expect that defense to be huge in sacks this year.
Right.
But this defense, to me, has to definitely be one of the better teams in the league in terms of takeaways. So if they can get consistent offensive line play, and that defense can be able to turn over the ball a little bit, I really do think this team can push for a playoff spot. Mm-hmm. And all you got to do is make the playoffs. That's all you got to do. Hell, the Bills made it as a wild card team last year and made it all the way to the AFC title game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so if those two factors fall in line, I think this team can legitimately make a playoff push and possibly get a spot this year. So I'll play it safe and say 10-7 also.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think 10-7 is a reasonable prediction. I think they're going to be. I think honestly, that team probably should have been 500 last year. Like it. They
Yeah,
lost in so. They found every single creative and infuriating way to lose a game at the last second. Like they were more of a 500 team than they were a 4-12 team.
that was easily, and we're not even talking about just in Falcons history. That was easily one of the weirdest seasons I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it just. I mean, it helped our numbers, so thank you guys for tuning in. But it's just like every week it was like a new embarrassing way to blow a game, and it just like at a certain point we just didn't feel anything anymore. It was like, they blew it again. No, I just don't care.
For the fans, it really got to a point in the Falcoholic group chat that we asked like the day of the game, okay, how are they going to lose today? Like it's going to be some freaky fashion. I remember late in the season I was saying that the Falcons, like a punter was going to be the first player in NFL history to throw a touchdown and run for a touchdown and win the game against the Falcons. Like it got to a point where we were just throwing stuff at the wall and see if it stick when it came to how they were going to lose. That was just such a weird season, man. God damn.
So strange. I mean, it was just a weird one. It was the whole thing. We like you guys know our thoughts. They should have gotten rid of Dan Quinn and Dimitrov last year, like the year before, making them come back and fight for their jobs. Like it just didn't help anyone. It certainly didn't help the team. Didn't help Dimitrov or Quinn either. And I hope Arthur Blank has kind of learned his lesson there. I think that this is an opportunity to reinvigorate the team and to be really competitive. I think, I think I don't know that they're going to be a true contender, but I think they'll be competitive, and I think. They'll be a very tough out week in and week out. And I think it's mostly going to be the offense, right? Like the offense, I think, is going to be the engine. And I think the defense is going to be good enough. I don't think they're going to scare anyone, but it's not going to be a total disaster.
Just like 2016.
Yeah. They'll be good enough to keep it close. And the Falcons offense is going to have to take over. But, we're going to talk about their draft additions and their undrafted free agents and how we feel about all that. And, I mean, I think that they're going to be a lot better. I think we're still a couple of years away from, back in the Super Bowl conversation. But hopefully 2022, 2023, we can be. But we'll just have to see how they play it.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, like all you need is to get in the playoffs, like we said. The Falcons, their 2016 season to make the Super Bowl, like, let's be honest, they caught a stroke of luck. They had a hell of they stayed healthy for pretty much relatively the entire year. Had a couple breaks during the season. They had a little luck. Sometimes you need that. If you're not a juggernaut team like the Chiefs or the Bucs, sometimes you need a little stroke of luck to make a playoff run. So, if they can get in, I think they can, you never know. We'll see.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a much more entertaining season.
Your optimism level is it higher now than it was at the end of the last season or prior to Arthur Smith getting hired, or like how has
not optimistic about this last season? Like I think you and I both kind of foresaw that it was not going to go well. Like I think I predicted like 8-8 or 9-7 or something like that as like my high point, just because I had seen enough from Quinn and Dimitrov. Like I had seen enough. Like there's nothing more that they could do to convince me that they were the right people to do this. And so then I feel much better about the team's direction at this point. No question.
So but it has risen considerably since the hiring of Arthur Smith, right?
Yeah. I mean, a big thing for me was the offensive mind being at the helm, and obviously Arthur Smith being the one they chose was filling me with confidence as well, because he is, I think, a very good offensive coordinator. So I think more than any single player addition, and we talked about this on here too, I think more than any single player addition, the additions of Arthur Smith and Dean Pease are going to be the biggest factors, particularly for this season, but maybe even going forward. I mean, I think getting those guys at the helm instead of who they had is going to make a huge difference. I mean,
and to me, there were really no during the offseason, there were no really questionable moves that really concerned you, like a couple years ago when they signed James Carpenter and Jamon Brown. Like that really was like, okay, what?
And then drafted Chris Lindstrom. It was like, what the
hell?
And
then drafted Lindstrom. What are we doing here? But for the most part, the offseason has gone pretty damn solid, to be honest with you. You know, I mean, everybody said that they were in cap hell, and they're not necessarily they're not necessarily out of the fire when it comes to that. But
Right.
I think they managed cap hell pretty good so far. They didn't
Yeah.
they at this point, knock on wood, they didn't have to part ways with Matt. They didn't have to part ways with Julio. You know, they were able to make some signings that we definitely didn't expect. Like, I didn't expect them to be able to bring in a guy like Cordero Patterson, but they did. I didn't expect them to bring in a solid running back like Mike Davis, but they did.
Yeah.
Deron Harmon, to me, Deron Harmon was a steal.
Oh yeah, dude. That was one of the best times. I mean, that's what
That was a steal. Yeah.
They made smart moves.
Right.
They didn't do the typical Dimitrov thing, which was to go out and splurge on one big free agent,
Right.
put all your eggs in that basket, and then fill the rest of free agency with like nobodies. You know, it was a lot of kind of fringe guys that I think you could squint and be like, this is a guy that's actually going to outplay what he made. You know, all these 1-year contracts. I mean, if a lot of these guys hit and this team is, you know, has a winning record, like you're raking in comp picks next year potentially, because you're not going to be able to sign a bunch of guys next year either. So Deron Harmon, if he has a good season, he's probably going elsewhere for a big contract and getting you a decent comp pick. All of these guys, honestly, all these 1-year contracts are really smart. And Kay Green, says Fabian Moreau. Honestly, I think Fabian Moreau is going to be our number 2 corner, and I think people are going to be like, wow, like, why couldn't we sign a number 2 corner for like pennies last year? And you just have to be smart about it. Like,
I think it reminded me a lot of what, and I'm gonna be fair here, and I'm gonna give the Saints a little credit. It reminded me a little bit of what Fontenot did for the Saints when it comes to not back-breaking signings in free agency. He brought in DeMario Davis, which is a smart signing. Jared Cook last year was another smart signing. Like, those were good, solid moves. Bringing back Malcolm Jenkins was another solid one. Like, those were moves that you look at and say, okay, that was pretty good. I'll give you your credit there on that one. And Latavius Murray was another one. But it reminded me a little bit of that. Getting a guy like Cordero, getting a guy like Deron Harmon. If this team makes the playoffs, I think we're going to look back and say, man, look at those smart signings, those cheap signings that he got, and a guy like Deron Harmon, who possibly will lead the team in interceptions, or Cordero Patterson, who will lead the team in kickoff return touchdowns again this year.
Right.
Then we'll go back to this offseason and say, man, they got him cheap, dude.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah. Yeah, and we have some exciting guests lined up for future weeks to talk to you guys about, and one of them has to do with the special teams, and I just will say that I think the commitment to the special teams, and we're going to talk about this once Thor hops on. Thor's going to be here any minute, guys. I know he was having to meet a deadline for 9 p.m. and he was getting very close, so I think he said he will be on in just a second, but the commitment to reinforcing the special teams and making that, I think, a big strength of the team instead of just kind of an afterthought, I think that's going to pay dividends, because that's an area that teams teams aren't really focusing on. A lot of teams are just kind of like, okay, especially kick returns, like, just who cares? Like, we're just going to take the touchback and we're just going to Cordero Patterson does not accept touchbacks. He does occasionally, but that man will run it back from 10 yards deep and get 40 yards, like, because he's Cordero Patterson.
It's smart moves, man, because when your team, you got to give credit to the front office and the coaching staff for recognizing this and hopping on it, because the Falcons were one of the worst teams in the league in average starting position on offense, one of the worst. And it's obvious that they place an emphasis on improving that this offseason, because what do? Instead of just going out and get a guy that's going to, have a touchback every time he touches the ball on kickoff, they got the best kickoff returner in the league. And they said, we're not going to be starting from the 15 all the time. We're not going to be starting from the 20 or 25 all the time. We're going to improve our offensive field position. And they went out and did it. And again, same with punt returner, getting a guy like Avery Williams, who I think can definitely, if he makes the roster, he can be an asset there too. So again, it's all about credit to the front office for seeing that, man, and hitting yards. You don't look at box score to see how many yards your kick returner has acclimated or has put together in a particular game, but you'll notice it when the Falcons are starting from the 50.
Right.
You'll notice it then. You'll know, like, man, they got a lot of short drives. I wonder why, because Cordero Patterson is back there. That's why.
Exactly. Like they had like one of the worst starting field positions in the league in 2020, and I think, kudos to them. They were like, this is not good enough. We can do better, and we don't have to spend a lot of money. It's special teams.
Right.
Like, if we can make if we can make a unit of our team the best in the NFL, we should do it. And it's like the special teams is the easiest to do because you don't have to spend a ton of money to do that. And they were like, look, let's just do it. And I think that they did. I think Avery Williams, very good punt returner, and honestly Chris Rowland too. He's going to get a shot as well. I think both of those guys can be high-level punt returners. And then obviously Cordero Patterson as well. I'm interested to see how they use him at running back too, because apparently they want to. But
it's also this is the game of momentum, man. And if you're a team, let's put it this way: in the games that the Falcons had last year, those weird games, how many of those games you think would have turned out the same if they would have somehow had in the Dallas game? Let's say Dallas had all the momentum, making a comeback, and then boom, 108-yard kickoff return.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna like it.
How that could have flipped the game right there.
Right.
The Detroit game. Detroit has the momentum. Boom, 108-yard kickoff return by Cordero Patterson. Momentum gone. The Chicago game. Chicago making a second half comeback. They scored a touchdown. Nick Foles comes in the game. They scored a touchdown on the first drive. Guess what? Boom, 108-yard kickoff return by Cordero Patterson.
Yep.
Like just look
exciting,
at it from yeah, exactly. Look at it from that aspect as well. How exciting a kickoff return can be, and how it can really shift the momentum of a game. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So again, from that aspect alone, given the fact, because also this team, how many games they lose last year by 7 points or less?
8, I think. It was like tied for the most ever, almost, or something like that.
Now again, imagine if they would have had those type of momentum swinging plays.
Right. Just the Reds, like I think we did the math, like if they had an average red zone offense, like if they had average red zone efficiency, not even like Arthur Smith red zone efficiency, like Arthur Smith had a 75% red zone efficiency, which was number 1, but if they just had an average red zone efficiency, they would have been a top 10 scoring offense, and I guarantee they would have won at least half of those games. So
how you can get to the red zone quick? Better field position.
Better field position. Also, Kyle Pitts might help,
Well, yeah. I mean, having a guy like that might help too.
Yeah. We got one more from George Costanza, $3. Thanks again, George, for your support, man. He says, I think Atlanta is the second best team in the NFC South, possibly even the 4th best team in the whole NFC. I really think people are downplaying how much Pitts helps our red zone percentage and third down conversion rate. When we score 6s instead of 3, we're going to keep our offense on the field, and I think that'll make the defense better. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if the Falcons do... Like, I think they're a very trendy pick to be, like, a surprise playoff contender. And it's going to be because of the offense and because Dean Pease makes the defense, like, serviceable. But, again, that's, like, all you really need. Like, if Pitts hits the ground running and is, like, the best or second best tight end in the NFL and the offense is just kind of humming... it's possible. It's possible.
I don't care about entering a season as a definite playoff team. I don't care about how teams view the Falcons coming into the season. As a matter of fact, I like it better when teams are sleeping on the Falcons. I like it better even as a player. I liked it better when you're overlooked.
Right.
That's when you really get the best play out you. So I mean, I think this year a good portion of the league and fan bases, they're not looking at the Falcons this year being a threat. And in some, we've known in years past, sometimes that's when you get the best Falcons football, when teams don't expect much from them.
Yeah, I agree. That was 2016 in a nutshell. And I think they're a trendy pick. I think still, I think NFL.com has them, in the 20s in the power rankings. So it's not like people are expecting them to be this big time contender. It's more
they have them as an improved team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like they're not the 4th worst team in the NFL or something. They weren't last year either, but yeah. I know some people in the chat. Thor's making his way here, guys. We're gonna break down the draft and break down some of these undrafted guys, but answer some of y'all's questions real quick. I know someone asked about Cordarrelle Patterson and his potential to be like a pass catching running back. And yeah, honestly, some of my favorite reps of him in Chicago were him catching passes out of the backfield on like wheel routes and stuff because he's really big. I mean, he is large man, and he catches the ball really well. You can tell he's played wide receiver. So yeah, I mean, I think some of his most dangerous routes are if you can get him out in space running down the sideline against a linebacker.
Right.
He's gonna dust most linebackers with that speed. So
I know you saw it when you did your film review, but I know you saw that the Bears, they attempted to put him in certain spots on the field, and you, of course, as you probably already noticed, they did it. And he wasn't. It was in an offense that didn't have a Julio or didn't have a Kyle Pitts. So I think
they like to use him as like a short yardage sledgehammer, man.
Like a short. Yeah, they did, but I think you can get more out of him than that.
Oh yeah,
I saw some formations where he was lined up at tight end, and again, you're a defender out on the field. Who are you going to focus more on? You're going to focus more on Julio, Ridley, Kyle Pitts, and you're going to forget about the 6'2", 335. He's
not even going to register.
Receiver.
He's going to be like Taylor Gabriel in 2016.
Right,
like, you don't have time to game plan for him. Like,
it's going to be the last minute. You're like, wait a minute, who the hell is this dude running?
Is that running Henry? What the hell?
Yeah, running a seam route. Like, wait a minute, who called that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the offense, if the offensive line can just be competent, like that's
all
the
they
big
need,
thing.
Man.
And that's what it was in 2016 too. Like they had three great players. You know, they had Levitre, prime Mac, and very good Jake Matthews. And then they had, I think it was Ryan Schrader still playing well, and Chris Chester, who was like just fine. And that's all you need for that offense.
That's all they needed.
And that's all you need for Arthur Smith's offense. You don't need them to pass protect for 5 seconds in this offense, like Dirk Cutter did. So, I think just from virtue of the offense not being as difficult to execute, they're going to look better. So it really just comes down to, can they be that level? Can they be like average or better and be good enough that they can do what they need to do? Which is why I'm not going to be shocked if we do see like Jalen Mayfield start, because I think they're going to be run heavy. Like I think they're going to want the offensive line to be able to run block, and they're going to do a lot of stuff off of that. So they're like, look, Mayfield, we know you need to work on your pass pro. If you can just run block well, we're going to run a lot of play fakes. We're going to run a lot of play action. You're going to be run blocking most of the time anyway, even if it's a pass play. And we're just going to hope for the best. And
I think most game plans, but you can look at it. You can look at their pass catchers all day, and you can deem that as a strength of the offense. But at the end of the day, this offense is only going to hum, depending on that run game and that offensive line play. That run game has to flow, and if it doesn't,
just be decent.
Yeah,
like it can't be Dirk Cutter. Like, oh, it's a waste of a play. It's bad.
It can't. It can't be. No, it has to flow quite well because, he has weapons. But I'm pretty sure you feel the same way about me when it comes to this. Like, I don't want to see Matt throw the ball 40 times a game, 45 times a game.
No,
I don't want to see it, even with these
not
weapons.
when he's been best. Yeah.
No, it's not.
When he was with Shanahan, it was like 25 to 35 attempts was the sweet spot, and in there,
and a fourth of those throws were coming off play action. A third of those throws coming off play action. So this offense is better when Matt is able to just, keep a low volume of throws.
Yeah. I agree. And I mean, look, they didn't, invest a ton at running back. Like, I like the Mike Davis signing. I think that's going to give them a baseline that they can depend on. And Mike Davis is a good pass catcher too, so he can play on all 3 downs. I think Cordarrelle Patterson's kind of a wild card because look, the Bears tried to use him like a hammer. And I think he should be more like, the lightning to the thunder, even though he's big. So I think, Mike Davis is the guy for short yardage because he's so, great with his contact balance. You can use Patterson as your speed guy, as your pass catcher, on a lot of that stuff. And then we'll see who shakes out, at the end of the roster. I know Thor's a huge fan of Javian Hawkins, and we're definitely going to get his take on him. Thor loves Javian Hawkins. I think he had him as like his 10th or 11th running back. So
I love Javian Hawkins. He can definitely be an Ito Smith upgrade. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Excited to get his take on that. He is in the process of connecting. I'm talking him through how to get on. He's working on it right now. But I just we'll see. I don't know who's going to make the roster. Otherwise, we've got, I think it's Quadri Allison and Tony Brooks-James. So I guess I would assume it would be Quadri, just because it seems like they're going for more of that bigger build for most of these running backs. But
it's looking like they're really going to give Quadri a shot at getting significant carries this year. But I will say this, man. The running back class in the draft wasn't the greatest running back class. It was, but to me, it was fairly deep.
Yeah.
And I am surprised that they didn't take one. While I do love Javion Hawkins, and I do think Hawkins is going to make the roster, and I honestly believe Hawkins is going to carve a role in this offense in year one, I still feel like, man, I'm looking at it like, yeah, okay, Quadri they're going to give him a shot, but would Trey Sermon not be a better option?
Right.
Would Kylan Hill out of Mississippi State not have been a better option, or Gainwell not been a better option?
Yeah. I'm
surprised
like they were, because they had great running backs available at many different times.
They did, yeah.
And they chose to pass. So
yeah,
I'm guessing they feel more comfortable with the running back room than we do. So we'll see how that turns out. I mean, if this really is a Shanahan, style offense, like Shanahan could turn anybody into a 1,000-yard rusher. So, like Mike Davis had like over 5 yards a carry last time he was with Shanahan. So, it maybe in this scheme and this system that's going to use his talents better, it won't be nearly as much of a problem. They could just make it work. So
yeah, we'll see. I mean, I just not trying to knock Allison. He's going to have a shot.
Yeah.
But going into that draft, I really like what Trey Sermon brought to the table. And if you're gonna look for Allison to be your RB2, then again, Trey Sermon was right there.
Yeah.
And I think Trey Sermon is a better overall talent.
Yeah, I don't think Allison's going to be the RB2. I
think they're going to give him an opportunity to be one. I don't know if he will win that role, but I think they're going to give him an opportunity to win that role.
I think that's fair. All right, let's see. Got some more questions in here while we wait for our guest to arrive. I mean, we could talk about the draft class too. I don't think
we talked about the draft class.
We haven't. Yeah, we haven't really talked about it since 2 weeks ago or whatever.
Yeah, we had to take a hiatus, man. That was
just to collect our breath after for like 30 hours and 4 days or something. That was wild. But thanks you guys for tuning into that. That was fun.
When it comes to the draft class, I think it was a really good first one for Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith. There's really, my only concern was not addressing edge rusher early on.
Yeah.
They waited until late in round 5 to do so, and they got a guy with upside in Ogundeji out of Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. But man, there were some really good edge rushers available. I would have really liked getting a guy like Ronnie Perkins or Joseph Osai out of Texas, or even if they were to wait till round 4, guys like Quincy Roche was still on the board. Jordan Smith out of UAB, who went to Jacksonville, I believe, he was still available. That was really my only concern. But outside of that, the draft class as a whole made the Falcons roster more athletic because of, again, collectively, that group is a lot more athletic on both sides of the ball from top to bottom of this Falcons offense. You get a guy like Kyle Pitts, and I was saying all offseason that, I thought quarterback was a definite possibility. It was on the table. And normally when you get new regimes in place like that, they go after those, they go after their quarterback early, even with this particular circumstance. But if they didn't get the quarterback that you wanted them to win, or you wanted them to get, then that's fine. But they still walked away with a guy like Kyle Pitts. How can you be?
That's why we can't be mad. Like we were
teaming
Justin Fields, but like if you're passing on him for arguably the best player in the draft, it's like
okay, right?
Yeah, like it makes sense.
there were teams who legitimately had Kyle Pitts as the best player in the draft, like over Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
They had him as the number one overall player on their board. So the fact that, okay, they didn't get a quarterback, we'll see what happens, what comes from that. But they didn't reach. It's not like they skipped a quarterback and chose a defender at 4. You know what I'm saying? They just they didn't reach. They walked away with a unique talent in Kyle Pitts, who's going to elevate the offense, and I think he's going to be a gem.
Yeah.
Some analysts has him as a top 5 tight end already in the league. He hasn't even caught a pass yet. So
right. Yeah, I know. Like for fantasy purposes, he's going off the board super early.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess the Hawks just won. They came back and beat the Wizards. So good. I'm sure Adnan's happy.
Yeah, he is. I'm sure he's probably going to come on here with a Twizzler in his mouth pretty soon.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so can't complain about the draft class as a whole. I did have a question about Jalen Mayfield, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
You have a question about Jalen Mayfield, my son? You're just gonna slander him in front of me?
I thought with what he's a big burly offensive lineman who's he played right tackle. He's probably going to end up kicking inside the guard. Better run blocker than pass protector at this point.
Yeah.
Aggressive, physical. He'll get in your grill, and I said it before. He's probably going to get flagged a few times in his career because he's blocking after the whistle. He's that type of guy. But I thought a more natural guard like Ben Cleveland would have been a better option in the 3rd round. A guy who's just as big, he's bigger than Mayfield and probably on the same par as far as athleticism goes. So if you were going to take a guy like Mayfield and kick him inside the guard, that's fine. But I thought there were more better natural guards on the board available at that point in time, and they didn't go that route. So we'll see.
Yeah. I'm guessing they liked his tackle flexibility. That's probably why they took him over someone like Cleveland.
Right.
Because, that was one of his big things. Is like, I think he is a better guard long term, but he was a good tackle. He didn't have a lot of snaps, but
he went against some really good Big Ten talent. He went against Chase Young. He went against Yetur Gross-Matos. He went against some prime edge rushers out of the Big Ten over the past few years. But again, he has upside. He has potential. We'll see what happens from that. But I thought sitting there at top of the 3rd round, I thought there were better natural guards on the board that definitely could have been day 1 starters if they were to go that route. So, Thor, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, man, how you doing? Sorry. Thanks for working us in, man. I know you were busy.
Yeah, you're a little tardy there.
Damn, Eric, he's been here for like 3 seconds and you already called him out.
Man. It's all good. It's all good.
No, you're not wrong. In my defense, I barely got any sleep, but I just got done with work. I just got up my AFC UDFA class rankings, which I've been working on for like the last 48 hours. So yeah, like my head's spinning right now, but I'm very sorry that I'm late.
Hey man,
no, you're fine, man.
We grateful to have you here on the show. Yeah. Definitely. Absolutely.
Good to be here, boys. Good to be here. I mean, if nothing else, like my brain is on like can I swear on this show?
Oh yes. Yeah, go for it, bro.
Okay. Like my brain is in the deepest of the deepest shit right now. Like, did you guys see Tropic Thunder?
Yeah.
You know when Nick Nolte's like they're in the like we're in the deep shit now. Like we're gonna bring him into the deep shit. Like I've been in the deep shit like with the UDFA stuff. So anyway, as deep as you guys want to go.
Deep. Yeah, like how many players did you watch this year?
Well, it's funny because this draft class there was only 600 and I'm not going to remember the exact number, but it's like 667 or something official declarees.
Yeah.
Whereas the year before it was like 3 times that. It was, it was like 19 something.
Right.
Anyway, I go into this in my column, but the supposition some people have made is that the UDFA class and the draft itself was worse because of that. I disagree. I think that the number between 650 and 1950, those were just the guys that took advantage of the NCAA's the extra waiver year or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like all the guys that were going to be in this class, they're the ones that were in the class. All the guys that were going to declared. This wasn't an especially shitty class. It wasn't an especially like awesome class. It was at the top, like the top 6 picks, I think are like special. It's top 7 picks, but like overall, to your question, I do the top 500. The past 3 years I've done 500, and this year I wanted to go. Especially because I was in. So you guys, we're not Roto World anymore. We're NBC Sports Edge now.
Edge. Mm-hmm.
But you guys, do you guys ever read our like during the draft? Have you ever seen like our live blurbs, our live draft blurbs?
Yeah.
So like to do that, we have to write them in advance. We can't do that. I hate to reveal the magician's secret. We don't actually write that like the second it happens. But anyway, this year I was in charge of like that project, right? And so you have to do them all in advance. But like to do that, like it's like it's not just writing them. It's like you have to go through every dude because you don't want to miss someone that could be a surprise dude that gets drafted in round 7. Because the person that's on the clock, the NFL dude that didn't study the kid, you don't want to put him in a situation where he has to just in that moment, in that second where it's like, there's picks every 3 minutes where he has to write a 2-sentence blurb, where he has to like Google the guy.
Yeah.
And so anyway, for that reason, I wanted to go even deeper this year and make damn sure that I didn't miss anyone. And so I went even deeper. So basically I went to the depths of the ocean, particularly with this class, because it was only 660 or whatever. Now I didn't, on every single kid up to the very bottom, I didn't get to watch every single one of them. At the very bottom of it, some of that was analytics that went into the ranking of the ones, like when it went into the positions at the bottom. But through 500, I do work on all those kids and into the into the where it drops below, because I have to partition off at the 500. Like it's important to me that the 500 is that I feel good about that, right? So and with one cool thing about my job is a lot of people that do NFL draft work, they during the NFL season, they're either doing NFL work or they come at it from NFL perspective. With me, it's the opposite. Like I cover college football. For me, it's college football year round. And so on Saturdays during college football season, I'm watching 3 or 4 games at a time for my job from the start, from bell to bell, Thursday, Friday, whatever. So anyways, I get a lot of exposure to these kids all throughout their career.
Right. And most of the NFL guys don't necessarily start churning out tape until, later in the college football season. Where for you, like you said, you're observing these guys from week 1 coming into the season.
The other thing I think it helps with is when you like when a guy goes back and watches the cut-ups, generally what happens is you invariably watch like 4 cut-ups of a guy, and then that's what you base your evaluation on. That's fine. You can get an idea of the skill and stuff like that. One issue with doing it that way is you remove the context from which those games occurred. Right. And one example of this, I'll give you guys a mistake that I made. I don't always have to go back and watch the skill guys, because those guys, I can watch them in my head. I watched them for 4 years. The guys that I have to rewatch, trench guys I gotta watch all of them. And then the defenders, right? And so 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever class Frank Ragnow was in, I was watching Frank Ragnow, and I was excited to watch him because Frank Ragnow is a Minnesota boy, but he had gone to Arkansas to play for Bielema. And so I was watching Ragnow, and I was inclined to like Ragnow, seeing I'm coming to you guys from Minnesota. I'm from Brainerd, Minnesota. I live in Minneapolis now, so I was inclined. I'll always, I'm more inclined to like you, if you're from Minnesota. But anyway, I'm watching the kid, and I'm like, yeah, he's a tough kid, but like he's not, he doesn't move very well. I like the strength and stuff. Again, seems tough, but like it seems like he gets stuck in the mud. It's like, how is this guy with this limited athleticism and stuff, like, how is this going to work in the NFL? Like, I forgot the guy he was going against, but like he was going against an NFL interior guy, and he was getting his lunch eaten. And I was just like, eh. And so anyway, I ended up ranking him lower. And then right before the draft that year, he ends up shooting up the boards. And I was like, this is weird. Because I had watched Ragnow, the 3 or 4 game thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so anyway, he ends up going, 20th to the Lions or whatever. And I was just like, I didn't think Ragnow was a first round player. Well, anyhow, I go back and I looked into the games that I had watched. I had picked the games that he was against his best opponents, right? Because that's what you want to do. You want to see him against his best opponents. Right. Well, it turned out that season that he had a high ankle sprain during the stretch that I happened to pick a couple of those games. Right. And so he had
that's why his movement wasn't there.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just totally missed that context. And so sometimes when you remove that, unless you're paying a lot of attention, you can miss stuff like that when you're looking back at the thing. I don't usually miss stuff like that, but that was an example where I did, and it cost me in my evaluation on that player.
Real quickly before we move on to the draft class, but one thing, I took the Scouting Academy a few years ago, and one thing that I plucked from that was learning, because of course the casual fan will go, like, if you check the game logs, of course you'll watch the games where they shine the most. But I want to pick games against certain opponents. If a defensive end had a 2-tackle game against a prime opponent, that's a game I want to watch. Why was he limited in that game? If he played against Ohio State and he only had 1 tackle, like, I want to know why. So it's all about picking the right games and the right matchups for those type of players. Absolutely, I agree with you there.
Yeah, and playing investigator is, seeing it with your eyes, and then also backfilling that context, right? Because like when you do the projection stuff, you have to fill in the future, right? And so sometimes you have to fill in the present as well to do that, or your ability to sort of fill in the future thing, you don't have the correct gauge. You're not going off the. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's like a dance, and like that's the thing, like finding out the timing of the injury and like when they suffered it, and like was it this game or that game, and like that's a big part of it, and you have to kind of do some sleuthing because college does not report injuries as accurately as the NFL does.
That's
we
right.
get spoiled. Yep. We know exactly when he showed up on the injury report in the NFL, and when you're doing it for the college players, you just it's a lot more guesswork. So I definitely appreciate that work you put in there. But in terms of the Falcons draft class, you mentioned the top 6 players. The Falcons come away with Kyle Pitts. What did you think of that selection for them at 4? Eric and I were fans of Justin Fields. So we were, thinking long term with that pick, but obviously we're not upset, with Kyle Pitts. What is your takeaway on that selection at the top?
Yeah, Atlanta is basically the only team that I don't nitpick not taking Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, no, that's true. Yeah, because Pitts was my number 2 player, and I think that's the perfect team for him as well.
Yeah.
Right. So And the other thing is, having Matt Ryan, it's because it sounds good in the moment, but and obviously Justin Fields is like a million times better than Jordan Love. Like, let's be honest. Yeah. But as the Packers saw, you do that pick, you put the other guy on a shot clock. Well, Matt Ryan's still good, and I love Justin Fields, but you do that, Ryan's gone next year, right? Like, it's a 1-year thing or whatever, and. I just think the value of a player like that, you might as well just ride it out there, especially when Pitts, it's a different deal, right? Like that is not a normal prospect, right? And the way that I described it to people during the process, because I couldn't, I do a lot of comps. right? Like
Right,
I do
right.
like, like however many fucking comps I do, but and like, even like I do comps so far down the board, like, and I love it. I spent an hour trying to figure out a comp for this kid named Kelvin Ashley, this 5-star bust that had
The offensive tackle out of Florida A&M.
exactly.
Yeah.
Then he got a Florida A&M. Like I called a college football junkie that he used to be a GA at Northwestern State in Nacogdoches, Louisiana, because he had coaching contacts. And anyway, we went through rivals for like an hour trying to find an analogous bust that had a cup of coffee in the NFL that I could compete. Anyhow, sorry, I was rambling there for a second. What was I saying before that? About Pitts?
About Pitts?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were saying they. I guess you were coming up with if there was a comp for Pitts.
Oh, yeah. So like, when I was, the thing with the Pitts comp was like, when I was looking around, like when I was doing it initially, thinking about one for him, I couldn't. There wasn't one that was like coming to the tip of my tongue, and so then I looked around at like some of the other people in the industry, and they had Darren Waller, and it's like, Kyle Pitts is better than Darren Waller right now.
Right now,
Yeah. I like Darren Waller too, so it's like, it's
like I can't comp like a rookie to a guy that he's better than right now, so it was like, and so anyway, like I ended up going with Tony Gonzalez, but like it just speaks to the kind of prospect he is, because even the Tony Gonzalez one, it's like it's not. Right. It's not. That's not apples to apples, but it's like the closest thing. It's the closest totem that I could give.
You just kind of throwing something at the wall. Yeah, at that point, just trying to see if it stick.
Just some other transcendent tight end talent, but yet he's such a unique beast. Like I mean, honestly, like I've seen people be like, "Oh, he's like Calvin Johnson." It's like maybe he is more close to that than he is to some of these tight ends.
So Thor, you do feel fair as far as giving him that wide receiver comp in that situation?
Yeah, he's 95% of Megatron, like across the board, except he has a longer wingspan. He has the same ball skills. He didn't drop one fucking ball last year.
Yeah. Every single catch he makes is like a highlight reel. It's just, he makes like little dump offs look amazing. Like,
yes, that's the other point. Is like his degree of difficulty on his catches last year was fucking ludicrous. It's not just that he didn't drop one; it's that the degree of difficulty was so high. Like his I'm sorry, Tampa Bay, Kyle Trask sucks. And, he was like throwing all these ducks downfield or whatever. And, Pitts has got like 3 guys on him, like, because they were always putting their best hybrid defender on him and another linebacker, another safety, Kadarius Toney has nobody on him, and all of a sudden get him. It's like, oh, he's a top 20 pick.
There was one particular throw he had against, one particular catch. Well, actually 2 catches he had against Ole Miss. One was that it was a back shoulder touchdown that he had, where the safety rolled over the top. And again, you don't see that from 6'6" tight ends. You don't see them make that type of adjustment on a back shoulder throw. And then, Trask, there was a lot of throws Trask made last year that was like
Pitts is like single-handedly responsible for getting Kyle.
Where are you going
Trask
with
drafted? That? Yeah, like without Pitts, like I mean,
he for sure is. One funny thing, to hinting at that is like PFF has this stat of big time throws, and one hilarious thing is Kyle Trask last year they chartered him with like 42 big time throws, which is like it was either leading the nation or close, and it's hilarious because Kyle Trask like did not have a good arm. It's like just these ducks, but like Pitts is like bailing all these balls out downfield, and PFF's like, oh, it's 40 yards downfield, big time throw, into triple coverage, Anyway.
Oh man, that's wild.
To ask, I guess going Kyle Pitts was the best direction for the Falcons in your opinion? Is them sitting at 4?
Yes. So like for me, like what it reminded me of as a Vikings fan, this is the only like totem in real life that I could think of is it reminded me of when I was a kid, the draft when the Vikings got Randy Moss. Yeah. That's what I think it'll be like for the Falcons. I think it'll be the same sort of immediate impact thing and the same sort of franchise changing thing. I think that's what he does for an offense. He raises the tide for everybody. He raises the tide for the quarterback. He raises the tide for all the players around him. It's not just that he's a singularly great talent. I compare Kyle Pitts to like a LeBron James. LeBron James changes the geometry of the court. Every single court he's ever been on, every single player around him gets more space. They get better looks. They get more space. Everything like that. It's the same thing with Kyle Pitts. You look at the Florida team. I talked about Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney was never double teamed once in his whole effing life. Like he was in so few contested situations, like everything like that. And last year people were like, "Oh, he started running routes, stuff like that." I was like, no one was ever around him. Trevon Grimes never saw a double team his entire career.
No.
It's just he changes the whole spacing of everything. And also a team that has Kyle Pitts, you cannot stack the box against them. No. I'm sure we'll talk about UDFAs in a bit, but Javian Hawkins, I'm so intrigued by Javian Hawkins, especially with the Falcons. I thought that was such a good signing. Javian Hawkins he's a very specific kind of a running back. He does best with the spacing, right? Like he's an explosive back that needs that straight lane, and then but he's got he absolutely has the burst, and he absolutely has long speed. He's got the home runs. We saw it so much at Louisville or whatever, but he goes down on first contact. He's an airback, but a player like that does not do well against stacked boxes, obviously. But if you get him spread, right, you get him in the thinned out boxes, whatever. A player like that can start to hit home runs. You want a player like that played with a guy like Kyle Pitts because you can't stack boxes against Kyle Pitts.
Oh, not even him, but
you know what I mean.
Playing with a guy like Julio as well, and Calvin Ridley. It's going to open up a ton. Julio is going to see so many 101s because of that. It's going to be brand new to him. Same with Ridley. So I mean, it's really going to be interesting to see how elevated the Falcons' offense will be this year because of the presence of Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. That 12 personnel group, I mean, with Julio, Ridley.
That's what it is.
Pitts and Hayden Hurst, who, isn't a pushover, hasn't necessarily been what the Falcons wanted, but, definitely as a tight end too, I think a lot better suited. They can run out of that formation or they can pass. And it's can you afford to play heavy against that 12 personnel? It's you can't. But can you match up with the size either?
That's the issue. That's the thing with Kyle Pitts, because you have him in the slot, right? And then you have the two receivers on the outside, plus you have the inline guy. So you have 6 blockers, right? This is a real problem for defenses because Kyle Pitts can take you over the top at any point. You have to put your best hybrid defender on him in the slot. If you have a small slot corner, you must take him out. Right. And you can't put, you have to have a hybrid guy there. Right. And you can't stack the box either because you have to have someone over the top. If you don't, he's going to torch that guy. It's a touchdown. Yeah. He creates so many problems. It's a geometry problem every play.
It's because a lot of teams run out of nickel base now. They utilize a lot of nickel coverages now. And like you just mentioned, it's really going to force teams to play probably more dime coverages than anything else. Taking one pure linebacker off the field, you're really going to see a lot of formation changes now because of that. And if it takes off, it's going to be huge.
Defenses are going to have to play smaller against the Falcons. Yeah, and it's going to be more safeties. It's going to be more thinned out boxes. And again, this goes back to the Javian Hawkins thing. That's the exact kind of when you think about what's the kind of situation where Javian Hawkins would excel, again, it's against the thinned out boxes kind of a thing. And that Kyle Pitts naturally facilitates that. He cannot play it up where that doesn't happen. When we talk about unicorn sort of a thing, that, it's just he's like a lightning bolt from God. It's just he steps on it. It's like LeBron James. It's just that happens.
Yeah.
You know what? It's a different thing. Randy Moss. It's a different thing.
Right.
Bro.
And I think, go ahead. Go ahead, Eric. Yeah.
Well, I know you wanted to ask something too, but I wanted to ask Thor a little bit about the draft class as a whole. But go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, basically the same thing. I was going to move on to the offensive line because that's I think the one issue on the Falcons offense right now. I think everywhere else you could probably feel pretty comfortable, but the offensive line, left guard totally open, center totally open. What are your thoughts on the guys they added there? Jalen Mayfield, Drew Dahlman. They have Matt Hennessy from last year, and then there were some undrafted guys I think you were a fan of too. Bryce Hargrove, Joe Skolthorpe, those guys. So what do you think about that group, and do you think that is going to be an improved unit for Atlanta this year?
Yeah, Mayfield's interesting because we didn't get as much exposure to him, and like he showed flashes. I don't know what position it's like if he hits his ceiling, he shows he can play on the outside. He's going to more than exceed his slot. But like the reason that I'm reasonably bullish on his profile is I think either way he's going to be a good guard. Like he comes forward quick with this size, the frame and the strength, and he just comes forward with ferocity, right? So like I think as an interior player, you're going to get a good run blocker either way, and I think as a pass blocker, he's going to play in the interior one way or the other. So like to me, it's like. I think some people looked at it maybe as a more pessimistic profile because it's like, oh, I don't think you can play a tackle, like poo-poo it. But for me, it's like more like you get a free bite of the apple at tackle. And, and he's probably more likely going to be a really solid starter at guard. As far as Dahlman, I was a little bit lower on him. Just because, I've seen a lot of these, like super athletic, sort of zippy college centers that like they acquit themselves well, like in the Power Five, but then but they don't have a lot of sand in their pants, and then it's like it
like
looks
Bradbury, who it reminds me of.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Garrett, and of course I've covered you live from Minneapolis.
Right. I'm sure you're familiar. Yeah.
He being the most famous example, but that's one of the things where it's like there's a few things like this where like an evaluation where it always looks flashy, and but like it's one of the that's one of them where for me it hasn't translated apples to apples. Like you have to have a little bit of play strength, right? And like some of those centers, some of those pivots, like I just don't see it as much. And I rank Dahlman lower because of that. Now, if he shows that he has a modicum of, it's not like he's got to be a mauler.
Right.
I'm not saying that. In fact, I love evaluating offensive line. I'm sort of a sicko about but I played offensive line in high school, so like I actually enjoy that or whatever. I actually played center, and like what I think what people miss about offensive line play is like you don't need to be like slobber knocker guy. You don't need to like knock people's head off every play. It's literally just about sealing them off. Right. It's about not allowing them to make the play. Right. The mauling stuff is great. The pancakes are great. But, really all you have to do is not allow them to make the play. That's the name of the game. And on my high school football team, we had a guard who was like he was like 5'7", like 165 pounds or 150 pounds. It was fucking crazy. But like this kid got leverage on everyone. It was the strangest thing. But anyway, obviously that wouldn't work. It was Shaq Mason, I suppose, would be the example. But yeah, I mean, like, if Dahlman can show that, like, to any degree, yes, it's going to work because the athleticism is there. But like, as Bradbury and some of these other guys have shown, like, they can't hold their ground. So it's just going to be can he get past that Rubicon point? We'll see, but I was a little bit more pessimistic for those reasons.
Is it interesting to see the Falcons go in that direction, knowing what Arthur Smith had in Tennessee, what he was used to coaching in Tennessee, more the big burly lineman, for them to go and get a guy that's he's sub 300 at this point.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and in fact, just speaking to that point, it was also kind of interesting. Tennessee reached, even in the moment, egregiously for Isaiah Wilson last year.
Right.
In the moment, and then what happened, right. And then what was interesting was this. To your point, this year they took Dylan Radins, who is essentially the polar opposite tackle prospect. Dylan Radins, I comped him to Brian O'Neill. And the people who were a little bit lower on him than I was comped him to Ezra Cleveland. He was basically like the prototype Vikings offensive lineman, and the Vikings basically see offensive tackles the exact opposite way the Titans do. So that whole thing was sort of interesting. Yeah, I don't know if that's a change of philosophy on whose side, if the changing of the Titanic chairs there, if that,
Right.
I don't know, or if Isaiah Wilson, if time with him, if it just sort of changes your consciousness in some ways, if in and of himself he is a psychedelic, I'm not really sure. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, because I think with Atlanta's offensive line personnel obviously more tilted towards that lighter wide zone style. But guys like Chris Lindstrom, Jake Matthews.
Which, by the way, that's speaking of Javian Hawkins, that's another Fed, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like they have the personnel to do that. Guys like Jake Matthews and Chris Lindstrom, they can do power too. They're not like unable to do that. But it is interesting to see, And Arthur Smith said it in his press conference. He was like, "Yeah, whatever you saw me do in Tennessee, like I did that because that was what I had, and I was gonna make the best of what I had." So maybe we're seeing now that he was serious about that. Like he's like, "Yeah, no, we're gonna do more wide zone here. We're gonna be lighter. We're gonna do different scheme. Because this is what we have, and I can do whatever." So there are so few people that can actually like say that and do it. Like actually be able to. Do different schemes in different places. So many people are so specialized these days. So I'm interested to see if that actually ends up happening in Atlanta.
Real quick, Thor, when you look at the Falcons draft class as a whole, biggest question mark. Where's one place that you would look at and say, okay, I would have went differently in that direction?
Hold on, I got to pull it up.
Okay.
Yeah, we had
I really like the Falcons draft class, which is why I have to look it up, because the top picks I liked. I know.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was pretty solid for a first time GM, first time head coach. I thought it was pretty good. There's really no reaches in my opinion, nothing egregious or anything like that.
Yeah, I didn't think there was anything egregious. The only thing we had a slight issue with was I think we wanted an edge rusher earlier. But,
I wanted to go in that direction a little earlier than expected.
But we talked about it. No, go ahead. Yeah, you've had a chance to peruse. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I like the Pitts pick a lot. I wouldn't have taken Grant there. I thought that was a slight reach. And we saw a couple safeties fall a bit, so particularly in lieu of that fact, they obviously had a conviction there, but I would have held off on that one. Maybe him. I actually like Darren Hall.
I think Eric does too.
Yeah. Some people thought that, and I just want to clarify one thing on Dahlman, which is I was saying some of them things, but he is a fit for them, right? So, I mean, again, as long as he hits that Rubicon, he is going to be a good player for the Falcons, and will probably justify that 4th round investment.
Yeah. He just has certain fits. That's all. You really couldn't put him in the scheme. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So, and another question, and Kevin, I'm a draft nut, so I'm gonna kind of go off the board from the Falcons here. I want to know, Thor, your favorite draft class. What is one team that you saw that put together a really good draft class from top to bottom and improved considerably?
I think my favorite ones were it was the Bears and the Broncos and Broncos. And the Browns, I guess. I liked all the B teams this year.
The Browns, man, goddamn. Hey man, I'm jealous of that roster. That is a talented roster. Now
they did so good. They did so good in UDFA too. They absolutely stole Marvin Wilson.
Oh yeah, I can't believe it. We talked about it on Twitter. I still can't believe it. It's
stole him.
Marvin Wilson had a terrible Senior Bowl week, and I think that was the beginning of the downfall for him this offseason.
Well, I think the beginning of the downfall was the Norvell thing, right?
The NFL
doesn't like players that could start a mutiny, and he said he liked Kaepernick, and Kaepernick was his hero, and so that started it. And then then he had people say he had a bad 2020 season, but really first of all, he only played 6 games. Second of all, only 3 of them were really bad. Yeah. The last 2 he was good, and then in one of the other ones he blocked 2 field goals. That's a good game. You took 6 fucking points off the board. So he really only had 3 bad games. But so it was and then he had the season-ending injury, which goes into the durability thing. So it's like, and then you mentioned like the Senior Bowl wasn't the best performance, and even with those things, it's like his 2018 and his 2019 were fucking dominant, and 5-star recruit. He was dominant in high school. Exactly. If he just opted out last year and didn't show up at the Senior Bowl, he would have gone at least in day 2. So it's crazy.
It is crazy.
So Bears, Broncos, and Browns. Those are your 3 favorite classes. Why, in particular?
Yeah, so I mean, like the Bears, to me they just turned around their franchise and they saved their front office. They saved their jobs for at least a year. Right. I mean, that franchise was going nowhere. They had to bet their first round pick next year on it, but like for Justin Fields at that's easy. That's an easy one. It's like they were picking 20 or whatever. I mean, you do that in a second. And then they stole Tevin Jenkins too. I mean that guy's gonna. That guy's going to start at. Did I hear that they were thinking of him at left tackle?
Yeah, they kicked Leno out right after.
That's why they let Leno walk. They pretty much let Leno walk and penciled in Tevin Jenkins as starting left tackle.
So I mean, we'll see. Right,
we'll see.
Yeah, I like Tevin Jenkins a lot, but like for me, the reason I like him is I think he's like a prototypical starting right tackle.
Right tackle.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, he's like a really tough kid. He's a mean kid. Pushes people around. Like David Montgomery, he's a really tough runner. And like for me, thinking about that offense, like I want them running right side behind Tevin Jenkins. I don't think of Tevin Jenkins as he's not like a smooth moving, smooth shuffling left tackle type. So anyway, I mean, we'll see. But I mean, either way, the move to get him in the second round when he was free falling. I mean, like Tevin Jenkins, he's a better player than Alex Leatherwood. Get the fuck out of here, man.
Yeah, that's ridiculous to me. I can't believe that, man.
Yeah, so like
Raiders being the Raiders. Yeah, Raiders being the Raiders.
That's right. Yeah. So and then as far as like the Broncos go, like beforehand, I thought I was gonna hate their draft because like I thought they should have taken Justin Fields, but I love Patrick Surtain. I thought he was the best defender in the class, so it's hard to argue with that. And then the rest of their draft, I just thought they slayed it. Javonte Williams, to me, is the best running back in the draft, so I love that.
Quinn Manners.
Getting him at the top of the second. And then the rest of their draft, I just thought it was like they scooped up value after value after value. I just thought it was a really, really good draft. And now you hear these rumors and it's like, man, maybe they eschewed Justin Fields because they knew something about Mr. Aaron Rodgers. And it's like, it's like, is George Patton like a fucking genius or like, is he the smartest guy?
He's looking pretty good. Yeah, he's looking pretty good right now.
Crazy. Yeah, I would be looking forward to that. So I'm interested to see if that actually pans out. Yeah.
With the roster they have, like Drew Lock fucking sucks. Like you swap him out, that's a Super Bowl roster.
I'm a Drew Lock guy. I believe in him.
You got to get rid of that take.
Sorry.
Yeah. you got to abandon that take ASAP.
Yeah. But
I mean, I'll abandon it for Aaron Rodgers, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No one's that big a Drew Lock fan.
Yeah.
But you need to just hit eject on that take because it's going nowhere fast.
I loved them in college, man. I saw plenty of them in college, and I just felt last year wasn't a great year for him because
I'm telling you, abandon ship on this take. Okay, dude, after this show, do me one favor.
What's that?
With 30 minutes of your time, promise me that you'll do this.
What's up?
Go to Twitter and in the search box, type in @Thorku and then Drew Lock and then hit search.
Oh shit.
And go back as far as you need to.
Oh, God.
There's just so much.
I'm going to see nothing but Drew Lock slander, right? Is that, you know what? I'm not even
going to see nothing but Drew Lock truth, my friend.
We're not going to.
Nothing but Drew Lock truth. Going back years.
We're not even going to wait. We're going to do it now. Let's do it now.
Well, no, I need to get Thor's take on the Falcons UDFA.
No, go ahead. I'm going to do that.
Your eyes will see thine truth of Drew Lock.
Go ahead. You go ahead and entertain Thor here.
Oh, okay, I got you. I'll keep the show moving, while you guys deal with your Drew Lock.
Some of my best tweets have been Drew Lock tweet. Like he's like a muse for me. Like I don't want him to leave.
You gave him credit as a lip syncer.
That is true.
Credit there.
I did give him. Yeah. Like he is the NFL's best lip syncer in my opinion. I would also say that I'm a Drew Lock scholar at this point.
Yeah, just because you had to look up all the knowledge so you could school the people that like Drew Lock.
Well, I've been following him for a long time. As his biggest hater, you have to be
right.
Like I think I watched like every one of his games in college. Like at Mizzou. Like, listen, I mean, when he played Idaho and when he played Vanderbilt, he was in God mode for 4 quarters every time. But when he went up against Alabama and LSU and Georgia, it was a different story every time.
Burned down. All right, so we know you love the Falcons undrafted class. You had it as the number 1 undrafted free agent class in the NFL this year. So we got to get – obviously you love Javian Hawkins, but I think you had very favorable thoughts on a lot of the guys they added. So, I'll open the floor to you to tell us why we should be excited about the undrafted free agents the Falcons brought in.
Well, so, first I got to give a couple words to UDFA ideology. I feel like at this point, like the world's foremost scholar on UDFA, studies. And so, a big part of looking into UDFA classes, you judge them at the top, right? The quality of them, it's the top 2 to 3 and then the top 5 or so, right? Because you're hoping that 2 to 3 make the, 2 is the sweet spot. And then you're thinking maybe 3 to 5 to your practice squad or so. And so that, when you're thinking about the UDFAs, you're thinking about that sort of numerically. But taking more flyers is great, in terms of getting more lottos, lotto tickets, whatever. The Falcons, in terms of fleshing out a class where you can hit that, and then the high end shots, and then also the high end prospects at positions of acute need, I thought killed it in a way that like I hadn't seen the past couple of classes. And I also thought that this is, was a uniquely good UDFA class. And so not only did I think they killed it, I also thought this is the best UDFA class overall of the last 3 years. And so like, I thought it was a really good time to pick to have an awesome UDFA class. We talked about Javian Hawkins a little bit. I think Javian Hawkins is going to be the Falcons starting running back next year. I don't know if it starts week 1. That's going to be the prerogative of the coaching staff, but he's Atlanta's most talented running back right now. Just a couple words about him. The reason he fell out of the draft, I think it's, and I don't think there's any health thing or, I haven't heard anything, what I think it was a lack of experience and a lack of catches, a lack of, this idea that he's not much of a receiver. He only had 21 catches in college. And, he only started or he only played for a year and a half. And then in high school, he didn't break out until his senior year. And so but like in high school, and this is going to go to both points, but in high school, he was a running back and a receiver up until his senior year. And then he became a full-time running back. And then he broke out, and that's when he started to get the scholarship offers or whatever. But he had a bunch of receiving yards in high school. He piled up a bunch. And at Louisville, in his 21 catches, he never dropped a single target. This past season, they finally started to use him in the receiving game. His first season as a redshirt freshman, they just didn't, use him. It was Scott Satterfield's first season as coach there. He had not recruited Javian Hawkins. In his system, they just didn't throw to the running backs. I don't think he understood what Javian Hawkins was as a talent. And so last year, I think he finally started to get it, that this wasn't just like this freshman back who had just shattered our school record for most yards by a running back a single season, but also like, he can do other stuff too. And so last season, Javian Hawkins averaged 2 catches per game through 8 games, and that's when Javian Hawkins ended up opting out, but he ended up with 16 catches. I think he averaged over 9 yards per catch. And again, he didn't drop a target. And so I think there's plenty of evidence to suggest that Javian Hawkins is actually a good receiver. Yeah. And I don't think that the experience thing, I don't put any weight into that at all. In fact, people talk all the time the other way about like running backs that, where they do the thing of like, oh, this guy had too much usage in college, and he comes in with too much wear on the tires, and he's going to he's going to break down, whatever. Javian Hawkins, like, he was a receiver earlier in his high school career. He only had one season as a full-time running back, and then in college, he redshirted his first year. His second year, that was his full year as the running back, and then again his second season, it was 8 games, and then he opted out. Well, that kid doesn't have any wear on his tires.
Yeah.
So, like,
exactly.
why don't we make the argument the other way? That kid dominated every time he took the field. That those 2.5 years that he was active. So, I mean, like, I don't understand the pessimism there. He does have a couple, quirks or a couple weaknesses for sure. Again, like, he's an airback. He goes down on first contact. He doesn't have, a ton of play strength or whatever. And the other thing is, I guess you would say he's like a little bit of a freelancer, where it's like, because he's so explosive, instead of a guy, like the bigger hammerbacks, they're always going to follow their blockers, right? Because they're just going to take what's given to them and then try to, pound someone at the end, whatever. But like Javian Hawkins, a lot of times he's a little bit too aggressive to try to find the cutback, and maybe he's looking, the other way, trying to find like a lane that he can go to the end zone. Like he'll cut all the way to the other side of the field if he has to, whatever. And so like some of the freelancing stuff he's going to have to cut down on at the next level. But I don't think that's, it's not like he's run like Kalen Ballage coming out of Arizona State was a guy that I wrote in my scouting report that he ran with beer goggles on. Like that guy, it was almost like he wasn't in the huddle hearing the play called. Like in that situation, it was bad. Javian Hawkins isn't that way. It's like he wants to hit the explosive plays, but it's like it's not obtrusive in that way. I think with coaching, that's going to improve. And again, with more targets in the receiving game, I think you're going to see a really good receiver blossom. He already has the explosive run thing down. The Kyle Pitts thing is naturally going to thin out the boxes for him. If and when he gets playing time, I think he's going to be the surprise breakout, UDFA rookie skill player this year.
Right, like the James Robinson of this year.
Exactly, the Phillip Lindsay, the Eckler, exactly.
Hey, I'm down, so down. I know you loved Felipe Franks as well as like a UDFA for the Falcons. So can you tell us about? Because all we have is AJ McCarron. So yeah.
I bang the table that Felipe Franks should be QB2. I think I made an airtight argument that Felipe Franks should be the second quarterback, and AJ McCarron should not even be on the roster.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I saw it in the article. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to me. So.
Yeah. I mean, either way it goes. Like, do you want me to make it? I think it's airtight.
Yeah.
Sure.
Go for it. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So first of all, like, two things. First of all, Atlanta. Okay, you guys are the Atlanta. So I'll just posit it to you. Number one, would you guys agree that Atlanta is not a Super Bowl contender next year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Number two, would you agree that Atlanta cannot make the playoffs no matter what if Matt Ryan gets injured next year?
Yes.
Okay. So if I'm the front office, right, if I'm running the team, if Matt Ryan goes down next year and now I can't make the playoffs, right, my prerogative, my job is now to my job is always about Super Bowls. Like, I don't care about, the difference between 5-11, 6 and whatever. It's about winning Super Bowls. The future, you talking about Justin Fields before. Matt Ryan, I don't know if he's coming back next year, right? I'm thinking about Spencer Rattler. I'm thinking about Sam Howell. I'm thinking about those guys, right? First off, on this roster, a team like this, I would always want to use my roster spots on the higher ceiling guy, just in general as a rule. So that would obviously be Franks. But second of all, in this scenario, in a scenario where Matt Ryan would go down, I would want to be positioning my team in such a way where I could subtly tank, not tank like Doug Peterson did. That's what's called overtly tanking.
That's what's called losing your job. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's called losing your reputation and your career. Yeah. The correct way to tank is you do it. You have to plan in advance, and the way that you do that is you to the media, oh man, Felipe's looking great, and everything like
great
that.
In camp, yeah.
Yeah, and Felipe he's pulled even with AJ, and stuff like that, whatever. And then Felipe wins the job, whatever. Like, and then you go into the season, if Matt Ryan doesn't get injured, awesome. Right? It didn't matter either way. If Matt Ryan gets injured and Felipe falls out his face, great. You might have tanked yourself into a position to get Rattler. If Felipe plays better than expected, well, now maybe you found a starter on the cheap, for free, or maybe you just found a trade asset. Either way, he justifies his costs if you merely just make him your second quarterback and you don't keep McCarron.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely helps shape things further down the line for him. Like you can really, when it comes to decision making, I definitely see your approach, because this is, next year's quarterback class is possibly going to be the class where they're going to take a look to get that next in line for the Falcons at quarterback. So, yeah, it would make sense to see. Let's see what Frank's got. Let's throw him out there. Me personally, I'm not a huge Felipe fan.
Listen, I'm not saying that I'm absolutely not saying he's NFL ready. In fact, a part of my argument is that he's not. Like,
he's not. Yeah.
If you catch lightning in a bottle, because we agree that he has tools. His issue is that he's not accurate, right? And his lack of accuracy and placement is likely going to disqualify him for being an NFL starting quarterback. Like 99% chance, right? But there's a 1% chance.
He can push the ball down the field.
Oh, yeah.
He's probably not going to go in that direction.
And he can run too, right? Like he's a big kid that can run. So like, again, like I don't think anyone would bat an eye if the Falcons released McCarron and we're keeping Felipe Franks as our backup. And again, maybe Matt Ryan stays healthy. Great, then it didn't matter. But if he doesn't, if Franks falls on his face, great, right? Then we might be in a position to take Spencer Rattler. But if Frank's if he shows off his tool, whatever, okay, great.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got time for one more player. I know the last guy you highlighted was Errol Thompson, so I did want to give you a chance to talk about him as well before we wrap up. Yeah.
So Errol Thompson is okay, there's a couple different kinds of UDFA types. Some of the guys are like J.B. Hawkins is basically the perfect kind of guy. You like that. That's almost like a gift from the UDFA gods. Errol Thompson is like hitting a solid like J.B. Hawkins is like the grand slam. Errol Thompson's like the solid double. That kid was always one of the best defenders on his he played middle linebacker at Mississippi State. Very tough kid. Awesome against the run. It's the athletic limitations, that knocked him out of the draft. I thought he had a decent shot of going in, or I shouldn't say decent, coin flip shot of going in round 7. But the thing with him is he's going to be good on special teams. That's why I think this is a solid signing. This is why I think it's a double, because not every UDFA signing, they have a shot to become like a star. I don't think Errol Thompson has a shot to become a star because of the athletic limitations, because he's never going to be good in coverage in the NFL. Yeah. But I mean, he could potentially, if he hit his bonanza ceiling, could be a low-level starter who's good against the run and needs to be hidden in zone coverage. Yeah. The absolute best, could be like a lunge pail type, fella. But he's going to be good on special teams no matter what. So some signings you and that's why I thought he could go in round 7, because he can be a core special teamer from the jump. And so that's why I like that signing in particular, because I think that kid hangs around for that reason. And the other thing is, as far as being a depth player, he's a guy that you can trust to go in if you have an injury. Again, when you're calling coverages, you're going to have to hide him. But it's he's not going to embarrass himself, because he's going to take care of his business against the run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not going to be a liability. I mean, you're going to hide him. And, again, if they play more 3-4 looks, too, they're going to be able to hide a player like that in coverage even more. So
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, we did have one question from George Costanza. that I wanted to get in.
Oh,
He's one
George.
of our viewers. Yeah, he's one of he's our show benefactor.
Should I give a
$5
bizarre
donation,
answer?
George, thank you. Yeah, but he did want to know what you thought about Larry Roundtree. That's like his boy. So, do you have any thoughts on Larry Roundtree?
Yeah, I don't like Larry Roundtree. I'm sorry, George. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of yeah. This is awkward. I really wanted to. Is he like Larry Roundtree?
He's
He
a
does like
Larry
but it's okay.
guy. But now you probably
he wanted to know where you ranked him, I guess. Yeah.
Oh,
probably,
fuck. I'll look it up. It's not high, George. I'm so sorry.
Number 500 and what?
Let's see. I gotta look it up.
He was like RB 32 or something for you. I don't know.
Jesus, that's definitely undraftable.
It probably wasn't that low, but
not quite that low.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, I got it. Okay, I had him RB 25.
25. Okay, yeah. So
you wasn't that far off.
Yeah, I mean, like I had him behind Stevie Scott. I had him behind Nate McCrary. I had him behind my boy Neon Deion Jackson.
Oh boy! Oh wow!
I had him behind Jake Bring on the Funk.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Oh, that's pretty low.
Yeah, I comped him to Alex Collins. He's George, to me, he's just like a grinder guy. I never saw anything special with him. I didn't see anything special athletically. I didn't see any special skills. It was just sort of like Alex Collins. He just seemed like a grinder fella to me. I didn't see anything to me that translated in sort of in any sort of special way in the NFL. It was interesting. I read. Sometimes I read Zierlein's Scott, I some other, whatever, and his piqued my interest on Roundtree because he comped Roundtree to Anthony McFarland, and I was like, I didn't get that one at all because McFarland was all the explosive runs, and I didn't think of Roundtree that way at all.
Yeah. Roundtree is definitely not a lightning in the bottle type guy where he can make a house call at any given carry.
No.
So yeah, I didn't see that one either.
Yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate you answering that one. Thanks again, George, for your donation. We appreciate that, man. All right. Well,
shout out to Costanza.
Yeah, shout out to Costanza for sure.
I should have left after my first good answer. Costanza.
Exactly.
Left you guys wanting more.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, we do appreciate you coming on. We went pretty late, guys, but we had to get all of Thor's takes. As you can see, he's a fount of knowledge. So Thor, we do really appreciate you coming on. He is Thor Nystrom at Thorku, THORKU on Twitter. Anything you want to plug, man, before we sign off?
I guess them AFC UDFA rankings.
Freshly printed. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I just put it on Twitter like right before I'll go and check Twitter after this. I'm sure I got some people calling me a fucking idiot because I said something bad about their favorite UDFA or whatever.
Part of the territory.
Check out my AFC UDFA rankings, and in there I added a couple things that I think folks will be interested in. I listed the top 50 guaranteed cash. The top 50 cash guarantees to UDFAs in this process. And then I also included I ranked out the NFL UDFA classes as well at the bottom. So anyway, go and check that out. Yeah, on NBC Sports Edge.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Check that out for sure. Also with us tonight, Eric Robinson. He is on Twitter at _Eric_Robinson. Eric, let the people know what you're working on so they can check it out.
I got a column coming out this weekend, a scouting report on Ogundeji. I'm not going to try his first name because I'm going to butcher it, and it's going to be horrible.
Combo.
Yeah, that guy. I got a scout report out on him coming out this weekend. I also have a freshly released scouting report on Darren Hall. Give that a look, as well as my past report on Richie Grant. Get that a look as well. Just check us out over at Falcoholic.com, man. We have everything you need Falcons related. Schedule release just came out. Get that a look as well. See how that looks. And let's go ahead and get the season started, man. I'm ready.
One other thing, you guys got to have my colleague Derek Clausen on this show because he's the world's he's the world's biggest fan of Darren Hall. I'll tell you guys one story out the door. Before, a couple weeks before the draft, I was finishing up my cornerback rankings, and Clausen had done the cornerback blurbs for us. And so I called Clausen, because he'd done 30, 40 deep, because that's how many you got to do, whatever. And so I asked Clausen, I was like, who are the 2 cornerbacks in this class that are way better than everybody thinks? Like, who should I look into, at last second here?
Yeah.
And he goes, Darren Hall and Cameron Bynum. And at that time, both of those guys were UDFA way off the grid, and they both went, I believe, in round 4.
Yeah. Wow.
Like that guy knows his shit, and he loves Darren Hall. So I'm sure he would love to come out here and just wax poetic about Darren Hall.
Oh yeah, we'll have to get him on because I love his. I've followed him on Twitter forever. So yeah,
he's the man.
That guy's another one. He's another one that looks at hundreds and hundreds of film. Man, that guy's a film junkie as well.
He's a sap. Yeah. I work with the dude. I love that kid. I love that kid.
Yeah, we definit's got to get him on soon.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, you put in a good word for us. Tell him we want him to come on. We'll work him in for sure because we appreciate it. Because I'm bad at evaluating quarterbacks. I just go off gut because I'm just not that experienced with it. And he's my guy. You
could talk with him.
Fields is great, and I was like, I thought so too. So yes.
He'll definitely wax poetic about Justin Fields with you guys. You guys could also ask him about next year's class if you want to look into some of those guys as well. I know you guys are going to be spinning it forward. And by the way, one name for Falcons fans and one name for you guys to ask him about. One guy this really piqued my interest too. He did our too early 2021 mock, and he had Malik Willis way higher than anybody else. And he told me, he called me at the phone after, and he's like, I was looking at all these other guys too early box, and he's like, I don't know what these guys are doing, not having Malik Willis in the top 10. He's like, it's a joke, it's like stuff like this. Like
his name's already starting. His name is already starting to get a buzz. So
and Clausen, he watches quarterbacks closer than anyone
religiously.
Than anyone that I know. So that's when he says something like that about a kid. Now I'm taking that really seriously.
Definitely. We gotta have him.
I'm looking forward to that. I hope we can get him on here.
I'm gonna text him right when we get off.
Okay, you tell him because we'll hold you to that. We're gonna get him on.
Pleasure to talk to you boys.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, man. Guys, I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin. You can check out the site at falcoholic.com. I still am on vacation, so I won't be writing much until late May, but we'll be back again in late May with another great guest, another hopefully Falcons related person. We can't reveal who that is yet, but you guys will be very interested, I assure you. So for all of us here,
he's pretty close to the organization. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, I would say he's a pretty special guy. So there's your teaser, folks.
Wink.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we went super late. We appreciate all 100 of you for hanging out late. We wanted to make sure Thor had that article apparently was having issues posting, so he had to babysit it. But he got it as soon as he could. We appreciate you guys hanging out late because, as you can see, we could have gone another hour easily with Thor. So we'll have to have him back on again and. Get Clausen on here as well because I love him. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Until next time, guys, subscribe, check out the Patreon, all that good stuff. Until then, have a great night, folks. We'll see you in a couple weeks.